one of us technically has to hit the, there it goes. Perfect. So what it does is so you and I are being recorded. There should be a message up on your screen that says, everybody know they're recorded.
And am I good on your side too?
Yeah, we're good.
Perfect.
So it is recording right now. And there's a little red, and you'll know because there's a little red dot. They do that. Of course, there's secondary software which you can record without. But this is a way for Skype to be honest and upfront. That way, they're like, just so you know, everyone's being recorded. It's like, yeah, nobody take their clothes off. So, how shall I introduce you? Are you officially? I mean, would you you have to forgive me because I've listened to a lot of your stuff, but I don't know if I know your exact term. Are you officially ex-Canadian Army? Ex-Canadian military?
Yes, yeah, that's a great way of saying it. Yeah, both apply.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll go, because I'm going to use that thumbnail. We're going to go Canadian Army strong type deal. So
Army's better because in the military that you have the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force. So if you specify Army, it's just a little more street cred, at least in my group.
That's even better. So let's just this be nothing formal. I don't have a formal intro to this or anything. So for anyone that's listening, because we'll just say we're starting now. How I found Dawn, and how do you pronounce your last name, Dawn?
Dussault.
Dussault? Is that
Dussault?
Is that French?
Almost like like you're sewing, like some clothes.
Oh, Dussault. Okay, yes. Perfect. And you spell it just so everybody knows. Go ahead.
D-U-S-S-A-U-L-T. So not at all how it sounds.
And the reason I had Dawn spell it for you is because she is one of the rare individuals, and I'll call you Dawn. I won't. It's rude to call you in a third person. Is that you're one of the rare people that actually put your real name on your channel. I can't begin to tell you because I use my real name on my channel. And I've done this for everything I've ever done ever. I don't use aliases for whatever reason. I'm Gen X, so it's like whatever. But when I saw a woman do it, I mean, even my co-host on my main podcast doesn't put her last name out there because women are, and some they should be, they're worried about getting doxxed or men looking at, and it's true on the internet, women. As you probably know, if a guy gets your phone number, the rules of bars still apply for guys to where it's like, oh, she's, after like 3 drinks at home, a guy will be like, oh, I got her phone number. She's going to be totally into me. And they'll call women in the middle of the night. Like, you've never even talked to this.
Multiple times.
So I found you. How did I find you? I scan the news, the media. I absorb so much media every freaking morning. And you were doing a live stream. What I do is I type in flat Earth and I search in YouTube and I type and I sort by upload date. And there were a couple live streams, and one of them happened to be you. And it's like, I've never seen this person before. Who is this? and then I'm watching and I'm going, Wow, you're actually really good. I mean, you've got a wonderful, confident air about you, and your credentials, which we'll get into, are intriguing to say the least. And then all of a sudden, look, it's like you don't even have 50 subs. What the hell happened? How is this possible? Now, I'm not one to talk because my channel should have been burned down many times over the years for various things, and we'll get into that. And by the way, when we're talking about the shot in the arm, just say the shot in the arm. Don't use trigger words because I lost literally a year's worth of podcasts when they went through my back catalog. Anyway, so I was listening to you, and it's like, okay, first off, you're on our team, which is like fantastic, and you're actually putting content out there. And for those who don't know, it's rare to see women on the internet that are actually in our circles. Yeah. Now, granted, like we just did the big Flat Earth conference in Vegas just recently, called Flattoberfest, and 40% of the audience were women, which a lot of people know that. It's like, wow, that's pretty rare for the truther community. I mean, normally it's 90% men, right?
I was expecting that. Yeah, I'm surprised too, actually.
Not with the Flat Earth community. There's a lot of women because it's a message of hope. I mean, I see it in your eyes when you're talking about it. It's like there's nothing sinister necessarily about Flat Earth. I mean, yeah, there's some lies involved, but we had nothing to do with it. We didn't do it. right? You know, someone greater than us. All we're doing is trying to keep the secret. And so there's lots of women in the audience that were into flat Earth. How many of them are making content? Very few. Because there's a big difference between sitting in the audience and listening to flat Earth content and making your own. Big difference. Okay, so let's get okay. And before we get this is officially a subject matter expert interview, which I haven't done in a while. But if you guys are on my playlist on my channel, I'll just rattle off some of the ones I've done in the past. U.S. Navy missile instructor, U.S. Navy submarine chief, career land surveyor, U.S. Navy submarine chief again, flight instructor, industrial valve expert, U.S. Army artillery radar operator, Australian intelligence officer, air traffic controller, U.S. Army master gunner, Army aviation and ground training, and goes on and on and on. So it is my pleasure to introduce Don Dussault, who is Canadian Army.
A veteran.
Sorry, Canadian Army veteran. So before we even get into, and the reason why we do that is because people are like, well, what are her credentials? She's probably a fraud. You know, she's just a crazy person living in Canada.
Controlled opposition. I got all that. I get people. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's go into real quick. Let's get your, if you don't mind talking about it. You were born in.
I was born in Quebec, Canada.
So French Canadian.
So French, well, I'm bilingual, yes, exactly. And so in 82, so many moons ago. And so at a very early age, I would say, if you want to get in the back, well, actually, we'll get in that question, but just with the credentials, I attended RMC on a full scholarship. And during a time where it was obviously very competitive to attend, which is the Royal Military College of Canada. So it's essentially our West Point Military Academy equivalent, or Sandhurst for other areas. And so I was selected to go there, and somehow they saw me suitable to be an infantry officer. And so in the Canadian military, it's quite different than the American military, where as soon as you apply and enroll, you have 3 choices that you can choose to select for your career. And so like my first choice was infantry and to be an officer, and I got it. And then so basically from RMC onwards, and RMC, I won a lot of awards. I was top academic, I won top academic awards. I won top athletic awards. This is not to brag. This is just to give you the background, because I hate bringing this stuff up.
I want you to brag. Please, you throw it all out there.
And so I had always, even early on, was in leadership positions right from the get-go. And I think it's because I came from humble beginnings, and we lived like in a shack in the woods, basically in the Gaspésie. And I say that as a joke, but it was a roof over our heads. You know what I mean? And I appreciate the experience. It was a great experience because it taught me so much, about resilience and about nature and about all of that stuff that I would not have learned had I stayed in a city area. But anyways, and so I had leadership positions pretty much always, like even in my first year, in my preparatory year before you go. And then in my third year, I was first year orientation. So I was teaching cadets coming in about history and about drill and fitness and all of that stuff. And then also teaching them on the side for, phases that they'd be doing during their summers. And then in my fourth year, I was one of 2 cadets selected to go to West Point Military Academy because of my credentials. And so I did attend West Point Military Academy for a semester. And because of Canada being in the infantry as a career, during your summers, we didn't get them off like ever. And so every summer for months at a time, for 3 to 4 months sometimes, we do our training. So you do a basic training, and then you do a common army phase in my situation. And then you do phase 3 infantry, which is dismounted tactics, essentially. And that has not as much of a failure rate now, but when I was going through, it was like a 77% failure rate. And I was the only female ever on these courses when I was doing it. Or if there was a female in the early stages, within a couple of weeks, they, and not because they were weak people. It's a hard career, right? And so in the Canadian, I'd say in the country itself, I'd say being an infantry officer is likely the hardest job, I would say, overall to get in it. And but anyways, that's just me being biased. And
that's okay.
And so when I was at West Point, I actually won like a top athletic award as well. And so I won a huge gold coin, and I was competing against like the elite soccer teams, you know what I mean? Like people with like a lot of endurance and stuff like that. And ended up winning there as well, like athletic awards. And And then I became like a fourth year FIOP staff, which wasn't the only squadron that I was at that didn't have a captain, like a fully qualified officer. And then I was the first female Patricia officer in the history of the regiment. And so there's 3 regiments in Canada for the military, infantry regiments I'm talking about. And you have the Vendus, which is a French regiment with 3 battalions, and then you have 2 English ones. But anyways, the PPCLI, the West Coast, is the Cowboys. It's the one that has like the best reputation, in my opinion, especially with like the longest kill shots with snipers. Like those are all Patricias. And people that teach these courses and as well. And I've also taught firearms, but I'll get to that. And so I was the first female in the history of the regiment to be an officer and qualified and badged. I've deployed overseas. I've gone to Afghanistan. I've been combat support company 2IC operations officer. I've been brigade operations officer. And I was asked, which was rare, they don't usually ask, but with JTF2, I was asked by a previous boss if he said like I should, randomly out of nowhere, he emailed me and he said that I should apply to the Special Forces. And so I did, and there's absolutely a rigorous interview process, selection process, whether you're an assaulter or supporter. And I ended up getting in and being a second in command for their training squadron, which was the biggest squadron and the busiest in my opinion. And I did that for a few years, got out, and then immediately started in 2016 time period working with people that are ex-Special Forces internationally because I had a good reputation. And then I was doing like higher level training for all levels of government, including Global Affairs Canada, Parliamentary Protective Services, military police, peace officers, emergency response, like our ERT, our Homeland Security equivalents, and executive protection. I've done that for Justin Trudeau. I've done that for the head of the Toronto Raptors. I can say that now. I've done it for like the heads of the Bank of Canada, the people that go to Davos, and advanced firearms instruction. I've done like advanced driving instruction, and but the big thing I do now, which got me into the truther community more, was the training, the courses that I was teaching. I ended up being the course coordinator for them, and it's for standing rapid deployment team courses for people that respond internationally to natural and man-made events. And so, because I got really into that, I had to do a lot of research, and not just what's on mainstream media. That was never my job. Like I never watched really a whole lot of TV anyways, because I was always busy or gone. And so I'm rambling on. I should probably stop.
No. You're good. You're good. Well, let me slow you down for just a second,
Okay,
just so
perfect.
so people can catch up. So extensive military training. I mean, you were in for 15 years.
Yes.
Yeah, 15 years, long time. In fact, on a side note, because I've known military people over the years, you didn't go career. I mean, 15 years, and then you were out. What? But you didn't want to go career. Any particular reason why, or was it like a kid's thing?
Oh, sorry, I keep on cutting you off. So different reasons. It was it's physically and mentally challenging, especially because I was always like especially in the last several years, I was always high level positions and always busy, and I'm like barely home, able to function, and I wanted a family. And so like that was never going to happen. And so like I'm openly saying that, right? And I feel like even 15 years, I would recommend women, like, I mean, if you want a family, like I just kept on delaying because things just always was like a fire, like to put out. And I felt like an obligation to be of service to people that weren't getting like the same attention or care to them that they were getting from other officers or things like that. And if we see with what happened with I got you. The word, but the pandemic, you know what I mean? Like you can see that like a lot of people kind of like turn their back on all levels of government.
So yeah, I know. I totally get it, and that sounds similar. So you were thriving in crisis management, and to the point where, and all of a sudden you're like, oh crap! If I don't get out now, I'm never gonna have a family. So
well, it was actually like I honestly had it was too much. Like there was just like I had basically almost like a breakdown because there was just so much going on, and like that's around the same time that I learned about 9/11 more, and anyway, and it was just like there was just a lot going on because I've lost people in war and stuff like that. And
no, it's cool. It's cool.
And so I was so angry, like it was a hard period of my life, and so I realized that I needed to get out just to heal and unpack what the fudge, you know what I mean? Like the last 15 years was even about. And, but anyways.
And you don't, and no regrets there. 15 years. If you had a chance to do it over again, you'd pretty much, You might get out a little earlier than 15 years if you had to do it over again, maybe.
I don't have any regrets for anything I've ever done, honestly. And so I would say at this point, I have no regrets for the time I did. Um, and, uh, and I feel like there was a purpose and a reason in that as well. That great. Like I had a lot of experiences that got me to the place where I'm at now, which is why I'm
Sure.
sharing information, because I feel like I've collected so much information by virtue of my experiences, my skill sets, and my travel, and the people that I've been connected to,
Yeah.
and then my own research, obviously a lot of that as well, to be able to like not just get to this point, but hopefully, like, you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
this stuff get even more out.
I gotcha. And yeah, yeah, you absorbed so much that yeah, almost through osmosis, you started to figure out pretty quick that what's the old saying? Well, we use the Napoleon saying because you're part French, is that history is just lies that are agreed upon. And you're like, and all of a sudden you're in the middle of that. You're in the middle of that machine, and it's
Yep.
like, wait a minute, the general population has no freaking idea.
And a lot of people don't even within the government. That's what I want to say too. Have no idea. Like I literally wanted to say that as well. People genuinely, like a lot of people, even in the levels that you would expect them to know things, they actually don't. Like
Yeah.
and they should though. That's not an excuse. I get mad because I'm like,
Yeah.
you should know and you don't. What you know what I mean? And I'm giving you the information. So like, why are you
Yeah.
looking at it? And instead they're calling me a conspiracy theorist. They're calling me like a white supremacist. I'm getting called a racist. Like, and these are from my peers, people that I've actually served with, you know what I mean? Like risked my life with overseas or built up like their businesses. And I'm just like, wow, like
I know. Well, ignorant, you know this better than most. Ignorance is bliss, and so many people are so much more comfortable just living in the bubble that's like, no, it's safe in here. I don't want to know what's outside of the bubble.
oh,
And you have not been shy, and we won't necessarily go into the Canadian stuff that much. If your guys are curious, you're living in Canada, you want to know what's going on with all the bad stuff that's happening in Canadian politics and everything that's happening there, please listen to her channel. And by the way, I'm going to plug your channel multiple times during this show.
oh, thank
Your
you.
channel is there's no aliases, is literally Don Dussault. And you have to spell it. Good Lord, how do I spell it again? It's Dussault. So go to her channel, and we'll do this more as we're going on. Okay, so massive credibility. Thank you for your service, so on and so on. Again, a vet. By the way, I don't think I have anybody Canadian on my list, which is awesome. I don't have Canadian military.
Nice.
You are
Again.
seriously. I've got American military. I got Australian military. I've got some British guys. I do not have Canadian, which is awesome. So let's start out early. Because I'm going to ask you some of the questions people asked me, which was, what was the first thing when you were started digging into different rabbit holes? What was the first rabbit hole you fell down where all of a sudden it kept you up at night, or you woke up, it's like, oh man, there's some bad stuff happening out there. Wait, what was the first one that caught your eye? And if you want to be delicate, you can, if you can't say it, but go ahead.
Great questions. And I would say that like I've never been entirely trusting of even education systems or the government, just by virtue of like how I was raised. And so, and I'll say that because like in my family, we have people that are hard workers, that are blue collar, you know what I mean? But we also have academics, right? And so with my brother, he is someone that skipped grades. He's someone that was it like engineering degree, all that stuff. And someone who, when he was a teenager, when I was very young, like there's like a 7-year period almost between, 6-year period between us, but he corrected a math textbook, like an advanced mathematics. And I was a kid, and like to me that blew, like that day, like I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean a textbook was correct? I was a kid, right? So I thought like all textbooks, all school books, everything, like they were all accurate.
They're all perfect.
So, yeah, I thought that everything was legit. You know what I mean? I know that's naive, but I was a kid, right? And so for me, I was like, you can't, like, what do you mean you're correcting it? Like that's like correcting like math from a calculator, in my opinion, you know? And so after that, I was like even math can be questioned, like, you know what I mean? And so I obsessed with reading at a very young age. And so a lot of the like science books, more nature books and stuff like that. And then I always just came at things with a little bit more questioning. And then even when I was in the Gaspé Z, like I wrote a book, and like a little book, but I think I was like maybe 10, I want to say 10 or 11 years old. And it was about the ghost ships of Chaleur Bay. Because
Mhm.
even then, like the distance of seeing things, like it didn't make sense to me. And so, but I wasn't connecting the dot that it was because of flat earth at all. I was just questioning things. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. So I wrote a book, a little whatever, about the ghost ships of Chaleur Bay, because the Chaleur Bay is like that's like Gaspésie is a peninsula, and the
Yeah.
Chaleur Bay is kind of like in the southern area of it. And again, I just left it, you know what I mean? And I don't even have the friggin' book anymore, because like when we left, everything was of course like taken, like a lot of stuff was taken, even trophies and other things that I had received from other things, but I didn't think that it would be at this scale. And so I would say probably around 2000. And oh yeah, and being in the infantry, like and I was a political science degree for RMC, because you couldn't get engineering if you were in the infantry, because it was a more complicated degree and higher risk of failing and all that other stuff. But even then, like I was learning about history, and yeah, and it was just like some things were just like, oh shit, they really did that. You know what I mean? I'm sorry for swearing, and you know what I mean? But these are other countries, and these are bad people in other countries, and it's
Right.
not people that would ever do anything like against their citizens. You know what I mean? Like here in Canada or ever in the US. You know what I mean? So I was still naive, and
Yeah.
then it was only within like 2016, like because when I would travel, I was very cautious no matter what, because of life experiences, that you know what I mean, being in the
Yeah.
infantry and all the training you've done, and I've traveled even alone, and I've had my own like sketchy experiences traveling alone.
Oh, I
And
bet.
oh yeah, it's like yeah, Egypt, like you name it. Anyway,
Yeah. Oh, hey,
and
but wait. On a side note, really quick. So always a critical thinker. Critical thinker since you were young. Did you drive your teachers nuts? You know, with that sort of
you
thing.
know
Were you
what?
type?
Actually,
Go ahead.
some I probably did. Oh, sorry, I keep on cutting you off.
No. You're good. You're good. You're good.
But you know, it's because it was a smaller like area. I think where luckily like a majority of my education took place.
Yeah.
My teachers loved me. And I hate saying that because like another brag, but like I was interested in the subjects, and I was motivated, and like it was an area where, you know what I mean, like not a lot of people like really interested in the subjects, but like I was so genuinely interested in school, yeah, I was always a nerd, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
except
Yeah.
even for
I know.
public
No.
speaking.
I get that because I come from a lot of teachers in my family, and you're absolutely right. When a lot of the class isn't engaged, the most engaged student is going to be the one they focus on. And even though you're asking a lot of questions, it's like, oh no, I'd rather have that person asking me questions than to have these zombies just stare at me all day. No, that's great. That's awesome, and it makes sense. Of course, you didn't drive them nuts. It didn't even occur to me. It's like, no, you were the one that's like, you were the one that was the go-getter, obviously. You know, so that's awesome. Um, Real quick. Crap. I didn't want to lose the momentum on this. All right, so keep going. So you're a critical thinker. You're in the you're doing. By the way, I'm sorry. Another side note, but you're in the military, right? Which thrives on following orders and not doing your own independent thinking.
Oh, not in the special forces. Not
No,
unless
I
it's necessary.
it's like no. These are your orders. You do those orders. I mean, and obviously you wouldn't have gone as far as you had if you would have been questioning everything. So what? You were quietly biting your tongue on a lot of stuff and just doing the research on your own.
Surprisingly, no, I've always been fairly like vocal. It's just I don't know why it was like tolerated. Maybe because I was a woman. I'm one of the only like, especially like the only one in the infantry as an officer, but also like one of the only ones like in battle group or whatever. So maybe it was more entertaining, and that I wasn't seen as a threat when I was talking about all this weird stuff. But
Sure.
I have disobeyed unlawful orders before, and I've even done it like on deployment, like over the radio, and I didn't want to. It's just that like I've always been a person where, you know, I believe that there's a creator. I believe there's a God. I believe in karma. I believe in all that stuff. And I believe that we have a role to play, a lot of people, and we have a hard role to play, but to be very informed before you do anything that can cause, you know, massive, like, you know, suffering or people to die. Right. And so even being familiar with Afghanistan and cultural celebrations and things like that, you know what I mean? Like, gives you a better understanding of the area. And so like, if you hear like Eid, you know what I mean, or a celebration, you don't think it's, you know, people shooting at you, you know what I mean, and like, you know it's a celebration, and so the more informed you are, as well, I would say, benefits you and other people, and that's why I'm so vocal about this, because I've served with really brave warriors, like people that like literally have died, people I've loved, like that I've carried their medal and beret in a Chinook during ramp ceremonies. I've been to multiple ramp ceremonies and funerals at home, and people that are still serving that I work with or communicate with on a daily basis. People that have even lost their legs, double, triple amputees included, And it's infuriating to me that we are lied to at the level that we are, and it's gotten so much worse in the last 8 years in Canada.
Yeah.
And internationally as well, but like just the level of deceit, and they don't take back what they say, that elicits emotional responses in people, gets people engaged in this pro-war narrative, and it's a proxy war that's being pushed by lobbyists. And
Right.
it's like, you know what, we've lost good people because of people that are not even a tenth of the character and the decency and the all that other stuff as people that we have lost because of lies. And I
Gotcha.
don't know, I'm rambling again, but it just fires
No,
me up.
no. It's good that people know your opinion on this stuff. I mean, I've talked to a number of guests that they don't really share much about themselves at all, and it's awesome. No, seriously, adds to your credibility. Love it. I love it. I may later, just on a side note, I may ask for some pictures if you got any military pictures lying around, just to not for credibility's sake, just to show off. It's like, oh yeah, no, no.
I have a few. And the thing is, like, when you're like, because it was like pre 2016, like pre Snapchat and like all that other stuff, you know what I mean? So like, I guess nowadays I probably have like multiple albums of photos. And I do have like a few on deployment and other areas, but I can't give you anything when I was at the Hill because
Oh no, it's totally fine, absolutely fine. No, and trust me, you're using enough lingo. Nobody could fake it. What you've been rattling off so far. I've talked to enough military people. When we were like doing early on, one of our early guys was a Sparrow missile instructor for the U.S. Navy, and people didn't believe him. They're like, absolutely not him. And I'll be damned if not only did he share a video when he was being deployed to his amphibious ship, the Iwo Jima, from the helicopter, showing the ship, showing him, showing the ship, showing him. But he also did something, and I never got in trouble for it, and I was really surprised, where he actually took a video, absolutely dead silent, from inside the Sparrow missile training room, which is basically a gymnasium with fake Sparrow missile systems, bolted onto the floor. Right. And you could hear like the humming of the lights. It was so quiet. And he's like showing around, showing him. And then really quietly, he grabs a cocktail napkin, because there was like a snack bar. And he writes with like a wax marker, Mark Sargent on it. And he goes, flat earth clues. And he shows and he turns it off. It's like, how do you get away with that? Nobody from the Defense Department contacted me. It's like, wow, lucky.
Fun fact is I actually know people that are still serving in the special forces. I will never say their names. That do know this flat.
Awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so let's let's segue into
and I
it.
communicate with them on a regular basis too, right? But they can't say anything. And by the way, with phones, in certain areas, you absolutely, especially like in operational secure areas, on certain bases, phones have to be shut off and basically in the vehicle. And not even allowed to be on your person when you're at work or at meetings. And then there's areas where there's vaulted access and like codes that you have to put in. So like there's no way. But but I do have photos of me like on deployment, so like literally in Afghanistan.
I
like those ones.
Send some great shots if you get a chance, just for fun. Because people might ask. Although seriously, if any trolls are listening to this and you're questioning the credibility, it's like, dude, if she's lying, she's one of the finest liars I've ever heard.
I look, I certificates and my literally like on my wall, like
I know. Oh yeah, there you go. Perfect.
And there's a lot of certificates that are like underneath and like in other things.
No. I have no doubt. No, if anyone that's in 15 years like you, and again, a go-getter like you, I'm sure you've whacked.
Because people still like even now, like they still say like they're like you went in the infantry. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, because they say that in America, like women aren't in combat arms. Like I'm cool, but I'm Canadian, so. Like, like do a little bit of research.
Yeah, I mean, come on. I mean, there are a number of other countries. I mean, America is one of the few exceptions. I mean, look at frickin' Israel.
Yeah.
Where not only you required, but women, you're required too. And now, granted, I do agree. There was a movie some years ago with Demi Moore, G.I. Jane, which I'm sure you've watched at least once or twice in your life.
I've been called G.I. Jane.
Oh, I am sure you've been called G.I. Jane at least once or twice. You guys have never seen it. Excellent movie. Viggo Mortensen as the antagonist, evil, instructor. Which is really such a far cry from the Lord of the Rings. He was the king in Lord of the Rings. It's like, holy smokes, that guy's got range. Anyway, but what I thought was interesting in there was that little quote where he was criticizing the Israelis and saying, they screwed up. And the problem is, and I get it, it's human nature, and you know a lot about human nature, which is if a woman falls in combat, there are a number of men that will make unnecessary risks to protect that woman in combat, which they wouldn't do for a guy. And at that point, they put, the mission potentially in jeopardy, and you have to either condition people to be not that way, which is why the Americans is like, yeah, we can't do it. So, but
and they have the numbers, so they
oh,
can, like maybe in the next year or so, like there's a possibility of being a draft. You know what I mean? So like,
well,
I don't know, and women may be involved in that. So who knows? I disagree with like forced.
Do you think a draft would work in Canada right now? Do you think you could pull it off?
I don't want that to happen. That's what I'm
No,
trying to.
I mean, do you reception like down here? I can't speak for you guys.
We did it for World War I, and we did it for World War II. And so, if there's a world war,
this isn't then. World War the World War II to now, there was a lot of ground has been covered since then, as you know. This is not. I mean, yeah. I mean, we were a lot. I'm not going to say simpler, but in America, come on. Pearl Harbor gets hit, and then literally a million guys volunteer. They didn't even have to be drafted. It's like, oh, sign me up, send me over there.
And now, were there American ships that actually pushed out off the coast of Pearl Harbor, like of Hawaii, like, and was possibly known that there was going to be an attack?
Oh, okay. First off, who are you talking to here? Look, I know. I've got an opinion. I have said on many, and I know you haven't listened to all my stuff, but I have said on many a time that, and it's an old conspiracy, very old conspiracy, but it was too big for most Americans, which was if Pearl Harbor, you got to understand, and in fact, I did a video on this, years ago, where I said, you don't understand what happened before Pearl Harbor. The war was won over there. Germany had it. It was over. I mean, Russia was in flames. They were using UK as target practice. Europe was already conquered. They basically moved into France. They were like, oh, no, this is ours. It's all ours. And the story was, if you've ever watched, I don't know how much TV you watch or shows you watched over the years, but there was an alternative history version of this called The Man in the High Castle, which was, what if it was a series, really well done. If Germany won the war, what happened? I can tell you exactly what happened because the plans were not secret. There were so many German people that were living in the States at the time, for example. There were a lot of German immigrants. The point was, no, they weren't going to fire a shot at America. America had nothing to do with it. They were just going to take Europe. They were going to send their envoys over, go to D.C. and say, yeah, we'd like to fly dual flags. And then eventually everybody would be speaking German. That was the plan. It was easy. America was supposed to be taken without firing a shot because nobody knew about anything that was happening in Europe. And then coincidentally, the Americans had to come up with an idea. It's like, what do you do? And it's one of the oldest tricks in the books. And I don't want to ramble, but I got to get this point out, which is one of the oldest tricks in the books. Like mothers don't like letting their kids fight for things, but fighting for revenge. Oh, that's easy. Yes. And as you walk up, everyone's done it when they're kids. You probably haven't, or maybe you have, where you walk up behind somebody, you smack them in the back of the head. And when they spin around, you point at your best friend. And that is something you can do on a micro level and a macro level. You bomb something, you blame somebody else. If you have even remotest evidence, you can pin it on them. It's like, oh yeah, let's go after them. So, when Pearl Harbor, short version after all that, was Pearl Harbor done deliberately to get us into the war? Of course it was, because
I did a video on that as well. But yeah.
Happen, we're all speaking German. There's no more French classes. There's no more Spanish classes. It's all German at that point. And
actually, even in Germany, and the name is escaping me, but I just talked about this on a video as well. But there was it was a communist man who was 24 years old, and during the Reichstag fire, which is German for parliament, but during the Reichstag fire. Around World War II, like it was blamed, like that fire was blamed on this guy that was allegedly a communist. He could have been a communist, you know what I mean? Because there's fall guys everywhere. But but there's archived data that I've looked at and court records that actually show that even like an SS Nazi soldier admitted that he had actually driven this individual, and it was escaping me, but I have a video on this. But he drove him to the Reichstag, and the fire had already been set. It was an impossibility for him to have set it. And then after that, what happened? There was all these measures and policies implemented, you know what I mean? And more freedoms taken away from Germany, and then Adolf Hitler exploited that, right? So like I believe that was also possibly something that was staged and planned internally, just like USS Liberty, just like Northwoods, which luckily didn't happen, but the USS Liberty, you know what I mean? Like that was a terrible event, and January 6th and
false flags, and we got to be careful when we say that because false.
Oh, sorry.
That's right. False flag. Well, no. You can say the term false flag. You just can't say that something was a false flag.
Oh, allegedly, or
That involves something recent, and by that I mean, like towers in a big American city on the East Coast. That sort of thing. But you're absolutely right. I think we pronounce it Reichstag fire, but whatever.
Oh, sorry. Good. Thanks for.
No. I've got a German family. It's totally fine. We're not offended. But you're absolutely right. That was one of the classic false flags, which is Nazism doesn't even happen unless that fire is set and you blame the communists, and then you start doing all sorts of fun stuff. But I mean, come on. Every American war we've ever done, we blew up our own battleship, the Maine, and then blamed it on Spain and just started taking stuff. We let the Alamo get taken. And then it's like we took those worthless pieces of real estate called Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and California, just took it.
Yeah, worthless.
Yeah, it's just worthless, which is now an adjusted dollar, something along the lines of $7 trillion just in real estate. It was one of the best investments ever. And any corporate person will say, oh, yeah, that was a great return on investment. Absolutely do that. I mean, you only lost 200 guys. And unfortunately, I'm not picking on infantry or army, but as you know, the pawns go first. Right?
Yep.
The pawns are sacrificed for the greater good. It happens all the time.
That's
Okay.
life, and the dogs of war wouldn't want it any other way for themselves either, right? And so like even people dying in battle, like a lot of people do see that as honorable still, and say, things like Til Valhalla. Like there's a closer connection to the dark side of the world that people try to run away from that we appreciate more, I guess, also. And
yes. And
people think that we're ignorant, you know what I mean, or idiots or puppets, you know what I mean, or people still in. And so I understand and I can acknowledge and that's fair. That's a fair argument. But I do believe that we still need a warrior class in all societies, especially first world ones, to protect and defend against intruders, right? And invaders or whatever. And every species in the world has they're like certain alpha males or warriors within their species that protect and defend. And so it's no different with humans.
Yeah. And unfortunately, because I got to blame the Americans for a lot of stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love America. I really do. Oh, by the way, another quick side note, I lived in Canada for a year.
No way.
I did. I lived in Victoria, of all places.
Oh, nice.
And which was weird because I grew up in the Seattle area. I didn't even know Victoria existed.
What?
Meaning, because most Americans think, oh, okay, well, it gets to Vancouver and then it just stops. And because that's the furthest west you go, there's no more Canada. There's just some trees past Vancouver. It's like, no, there's a whole nother thing out there. It's called Victoria. They've got wonderful buildings. The Royals visit there on a regular basis. And it's like, wow, yeah, I lived in Victoria for a year, so it was very, very cool. And
Did you do the West Coast Trail?
No,
I did. It's so good. I highly recommend it. It's 125 kilometers. You can do it over multiple days. And it's incredible, beautiful.
It is beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. Also, by the way, Vancouver Island is the highest. You probably didn't know this, or maybe you did. The highest concentration of Bigfoot sightings in the entire world is on Vancouver Island.
I did not know that.
Oh, yeah. I thought it was Oregon. I thought it was Washington State.
Sure.
And it's like, it's like you see all the dots. It's like, holy smoke. Well, and that makes sense because nobody lives in Vancouver Island. I mean, once you leave Victoria and you're going north, there's nothing there. I know,
I'm
right?
embarrassed not knowing that because like one of my friends, like her boyfriend is obsessed with Bigfoot and like all of those things. And like I'm surprised that I do not know that. Because of them, not because of research.
I lived in the Northwest for a big chunk of my life. I had no idea until I got up there. Oh, and by the way, sometimes, yes, I'm not making fun. I do slip into, I don't call it Canada. Sometimes I call it Canada. And that's because Americans live in America. Canadians live in, Canada.
Yeah, I know. It's weird, eh?
Yeah.
Eh?
Don't you know?
Don't you know, eh?
What's that about? And I know that's not you guys. Seriously, Quebec. By the way, I love the fact, again, being over in the BC side, I love the fact that everybody in Canada has to take 2 years of Spanish, has to take 2 years of French because of you guys, because of Quebec. It's just so weird. Which is the whole other thing. Sorry, I don't want to get into it. It was like
it's part of the psyops too. It's part of the control and the division. The
division
narrative, right? Every continent. Oh, sorry.
Well, that and the French and the British kind of gave up fighting when the French basically won America for us, right? We paid the French army. We had nothing to do with it. It was seriously we took our own Declaration of Independence. Like, you paid the French military to win the war. It's like, you had nothing to do with us. And then they got to Canada and they're like, we'll just take all this. French, you can take that. Nobody fought about anything up there. because nobody lived up there at the time. I mean, there were native Canadians. Yeah, native Canadians.
Well,
Anyway,
there could be advanced civilizations that
well, yeah. So
inhabited the area many moons ago.
seriously, will you get me started on that? Then I'm going to go into one of the greatest hidden UFO things that nobody talks about, which was there was some really great speculation that the only reason that Germany all of a sudden woke up one morning and decided, oh, hey, you know what? Let's take the whole world. Because that's a thing, right? The Roman Empire took time to get there. Germany, it's like, they had this little spot of land. It's like, yeah, I think we can do this, right? But the point is that there was a rumor that in the early 30s, a Roswell type thing crashed into the soft dirt of Germany and didn't get destroyed. And they just reverse engineered everything as best they could, which is how they got jets, and their rifles are so much better and their tanks are so much better. They just reverse engineered as best they could. And that's when all of a sudden, the military guys are going, yeah, you know what? Nobody's got this stuff. I think we can win it. and come on, they almost did if it wasn't for Pearl Harbor. All right. Anyway, enough digression. So let's get into, because you and I are on the same page of a lot of stuff, and I'm sure we'll bounce back and forth on this. All right, fast forward to, okay, so you did Canadian military for a long time, highly decorated. You were in leadership positions. You served over in the Middle East, Afghanistan. Very, very cool. Should we get into really quick? You want to confirm or deny the rumors that Afghanistan was the greatest agricultural endeavor the United States ever came up with?
I don't know about that.
No, meaning we can say it. It's fine. We figured out the poppy fields grow really well in Afghanistan. Ever heard?
I'll say with Afghanistan for like a few decades, like in the 70s, they were actually a little bit more thriving. And this is interesting. I don't know how, like I do research, but you can get things wrong. But like a lot of old accounts from farmers and locals from areas, like from historical accounts. Yeah. They were saying that even as early as the 70s and 80s, they were getting targeted, even their crops, and that there were, people from Denmark and other areas that were possibly dropping, either chemicals and bugs, like ticks and parasites and stuff like that on their crops, which made their crops like not able to grow or be yielded. And so poppies were the alternative because it was easier to grow in the soil that was like, damaged and like not the same amount of nutrients and stuff like that within the soil. Right. And also part of the connected I don't know how much I could say on here, but again, this is my own interpretation of my own research. But like the CIA and other government entities internationally were heavily involved in Afghanistan and some like drug things that were going on even there, right? And so I believe that that could be possibly a reason, the resources that were there, and of course like instability in the Middle East. Lockheed Martin and Raytheon and other companies, getting out. There's a lot of profit in war. And I believe that this was an opportunity to exploit people, destabilize an area, blame it on other people, and then just keep this perpetual war going on for, like I was saying, lobbyists that have shares and stocks in these companies that work in Senate, that work in cabinet, that are fucking. Anyways, I won't say it, but they're assholes.
No. You're spot on. You're absolutely right. There was
it's like left and right part of the same bird, right? Like everyone thinks that there's, but anyway.
I felt bad for Eisenhower because he's still my favorite president of all time because he was the last president with any power because he was a retired, 5-star general, led NATO during the World War II. And it's like, yeah, let's make him president, right? And he was the one that did that famous speech at the end where he's like, look, he basically apologized. Look, we kind of built this thing called the military. He was the one that coined it, the military industrial complex. And he's like, I'm leaving, but you might want to keep an eye on this because this is bad. Basically I've created this Frankenstein monster. I don't think you're going to be able to stop it, but goodbye. And that was basically what I said. But there was a wonderful documentary, and it's part of that. If you ever get a chance to see it, I'll send you a link afterwards, called Why We Fight. And there was this great line by one of our military analysts. And he's going, look, he goes, right, currently as it stands, war has a 20 to 30% profit margin. He goes, when you get a return on investment that high, you're going to see a lot more of it because that's just how money works. It's like, look, you don't want to stop the money train. So what can we do? So America, it's like where can we start scrapping up? Who can we fight or what sort of thing can we manufacture to keep the machine moving? And it's like, yeah, I get it. Money does, corrupts, period.
And they say it, they admit it. They say that they don't factor in, you know what I mean, the societal impact, to
Right.
like their dealings and stuff like that. They don't care. For them, it is financial,
Right.
and money is their religion. And I'm
Yep.
not saying everyone, but I'm saying there are specific people, that are part of like the wealthy groups that own these companies that are, that have their hands in internationally. And it's the same people
Right.
that go to Bohemian Grove and and
Yeah. Yeah.
and those
Yep.
meetings.
Yep. Again, I get it. Look, I've been uh, guilty of it as well. Which is, look, I do believe in the greater good. I do, and I do believe in that. Sometimes the ends justify the means. However, the general public, suffers in certain, and sometimes, what ends are you willing to go to, to get what you want? Let me throw one real quick, and then we'll get into flat Earth stuff because we've been going on for like 45 minutes, and people are like, "Are they ever going to talk about flat Earth?" Yes, we will. We absolutely will. But this is the first time you've met Dawn. I want you to get to know her. I want you to let kind of bounce stuff off. So it's like, look, she's on the same page. She's on our team. Yeah, and I'm
Yes.
sorry, by the way, you weren't at Flattoberfest. Oh, you totally missed it. You should have been there. It
I
would
know.
have
I would
been,
love to go to future ones for sure.
well, the next one I don't think is going to be in Vegas. Might be in Phoenix. We'll see.
Oh,
Right now,
Phoenix.
I think
Phoenix.
slow. Well, because it's in October, so you want it to be warm, and you don't want the weather to be decent. You don't want to do it in like October. You don't want to be like in South Texas during an ice storm. Or anyway, what was I getting at? Crap.
Flat
I had
Earth, possibly after this.
Yeah, we might as well just jump. No. We're good. Ends just find the means, which is really quick. And I talked this to a French group I was dealing with just recently, because we were talking because it tied in, and you'll get this, which is ends just find the mean. It was an exclusive conspiracy that only I came up with, but people will get it, and that is the Panama Canal. People are like, Panama Canal, that's boring. Who cares? It's a freaking ditch that you dug between, Atlantic Ocean, Pacific Ocean. Who the hell cares? I go, okay, here's the deal.
Important trade
When
route.
well, yeah, there's a reason why it took what it did to get built, because people were highly motivated to get this thing done. So here's the thing with the Panama Canal. When you build like a dam or a series of roads, any big construction project, men and women are going to die from construction accidents. It just happens. Things tip over, people fall, things happen. And like we built like the Hoover Dam, if you've ever heard of it. And I think we lost like 70 people. And this was back in the 30s. That's quite a
But
few.
even the Hoover Dam, was it built or was it there? And were these pictures
Oh,
staged?
no,
People
it's
that were
a whole nother thing. We won't get into that right now. No, we're not.
sorry.
We're not starting that road. By the way, appreciate that you're open-minded enough to go down that road. Don't go that far off road. Not during this conversation.
Okay. Okay.
But I
Sorry.
get you. I know you are. So the Hoover Dam, we lost like 70 guys. Right. It's like, yeah, it makes sense in the 30s or whenever it was built. Do you know how many people we lost building the Panama Canal? The better part of 6,000.
Oh,
You're thinking, wow, that's a lot of guys. And you're thinking, wow, that's a lot. But then I say, you know what they died of?
9/11s.
They died of malaria and yellow fever. And you're saying, oh, well, that happens. You're freaking in Central America. That's just par for the course. It's like, oh, yeah. And then you'd follow up with, because anti-conspiracy people, it's like, well, it's not like you knew they were going to die. It's like, oh, no. The Americans knew absolutely they were going to die. Why? Because we didn't start the Panama Canal. You know who did? The French. French started it in the 1800s. They came, which was amazing to me. It's like, how are they going to manage that? They're freaking over in France. It's like, really? But I mean, whoever claims it, right? You just set up a garrison, you protect it. It's like, no, it's yours. So the France are going at it, but they were losing all sorts of guys. You know how many men they lost? 22,000. So many guys that Paris started revolting, because there's a lot of mothers. It was like, my son isn't coming home.
I wouldn't be upset.
Oh yeah, so they were protesting to the point where France, by the end of the 18, almost going into 1900, they just gave up, put the shovels and the steam-powered tractors away, and they said, "Screw it, we're just leaving our tools. You're done." America comes in, it's like, hey, someone half finished a job down here. But then of course they're working out the details. It's like, okay, how many men are we going to lose? Because we're going to lose a bunch of guys. So we came up with insect repellent, we came up with mosquito netting, and it's like, but how many men were we willing to lose? And it's like, I knew full well, it's like, oh, probably some round number, like 10,000. It's like, okay, we could probably lose like 10,000, and then before people start losing their minds. Remember, this is all civilian. This isn't military. This is an Army Corps of Engineers.
Right.
So, okay, what's the point?
That's what I mean. Yeah, it's not like, yeah, sorry.
So the point is, it's like, okay, where's the conspiracy come in? The conspiracy comes in because we didn't tell any of these guys. That's how it comes in. So you're in the recruiting office, it's like, oh, what engineering project do you want to do? Oh, hey, that Panama Canal sounds warm and nice. Yeah, you know what? Sign you up. We're not going to tell you that there was a 1 in 8 chance that you were going to die. Or if you were going with a bunch of your buddies, you're not all coming back, right? That's where conspiracy comes in. Now,
Yes, because it's not informed consent by any means either, right? And I joined the military. I signed the contract.
yes, absolutely.
You know, like I like.
But in this case, but is it a conspiracy? Meaning they were willing to lose, as you know, pawns, right? Are you willing to lose 5,000 men to get the military choke point of the world? Yeah, of course you would. And by the way, you're charging people. It's the most expensive toll road in the world, right? It's been used, for a lot, and we made tons and tons of money off of it. And did the ends justify the means? Probably. If you asked any people in power in the United States, yes. But that's your very definition of conspiracy. A lot of people died. You didn't tell them they were going to die. It was for the greater good. Therefore, it's like, all right. So,
and now
anyway.
there's ways to like mitigate things more too. Like even in Canada with like the railway system, like we lost a lot of people and a lot of people coming in from other countries as part of forced labor or what we call Indigenous communities within Canada now, like also being used and given barely any money or any food to survive, right, in austere low conditions, and even in our northern regions for mines, and it's just greedy people that are selfish, that really don't care about people, that are actually helping them. And like things with like malaria or health conditions, like even just giving like just proper nutrition and like waste management in areas could have probably mitigated. But again, like hindsight, right?
Yeah, and if it was me, like with the Panama thing, I'd be like, you know what? If I was in that position of power, if I was part of the Illuminati or the World Order or whoever it is, I would probably be a little more generous. Which we do sometimes. Which is like, look, you lost people in Panama, compensate their families, compensate them well. Make sure that it wasn't for nothing. Don't do it on the cheap. If you're going to lose somebody, at least make their life seem somewhat worthwhile. Okay, enough humming and hawing. Let's get into it. So, military. And oh, by the way, during all this, I noticed that you, as you left the military, which you were big into, and by the way, when you were rattling off your physical prowess, I don't think people understand. You're a big physical fitness nut. Hence the thumbnail, by the way. If you guys hadn't noticed the thumbnail yet, you were always into that, even when you were out of the military. You're still going to the gym on a regular basis. What's the deal there? You have some sort of problem?
I've been told that. I just honestly, it's something that I've been working out in fitness like my whole life, like like Lewis said, and I can be fairly competitive, but there's also people within. I don't know. It's like it's also it makes tasks easier. Like especially being in the infantry was very physically demanding. So like even before getting in the infantry, even in grade 6, like I literally wrote on my my New Year, like my my end of school book, what is that called, the grad book, or what do we call it, anyway, I forget what it's called,
the annual,
and I said that I wanted to join the army. Pardon me?
Yearbook,
yes. And so in my yearbook from grade 6, I literally said that I wanted to join the army. And I enjoyed being like, I loved going in the woods and foraging, and I loved hunting and fishing even at a very young age, and I liked fitness, and people within my family, like my brother, he inspired me honestly with fitness, and my uncles were in football, and so I was good at it, and so with track and field and stuff like that as well in school, it's stuff that I won awards, and so I liked it, and then even with sports teams, I was always the only girl or one of the only girls, and I was even in grade 9, I was on the grade 11 men's volleyball team as a setter, and that's random because I'm like 5'4", you know what I mean? I'm pretty short, and so even as and even with badminton and other sports, like my brother was high level with ball hockey or floor hockey, whatever you want to call it, but also badminton and volleyball, and a coach, and so he actually coached me a lot as well, and so like I had an unfair advantage, I guess, and I used it, and then competed in ultra marathons through my career as well, and worked out. We got paid to work out, so for me it's like there's no friggin' excuse not to work out if you're in garrison and not deployed, but even then to work out, because you're paid to work out and be fit, right? And like you need to be there for your fire team partner and be able to pick them up. And so I've even fireman carried a guy that's like I still talk to. Big Rick is what we call him, but like this guy's like 6'5", like over 300 pounds, and he was in my platoon. And so as the officer in the platoon, after like you do BFTs or 13-kilometer rucksack marches, the officer is responsible to fireman carry at the time the heaviest person in the platoon, right? Just to show that you can do it. And so like his hands and his feet were like basically dangling off me when I was carrying. Anyway, but
oh my God.
but being short too, though, I could put a lot of more like, I guess, weight on myself without like with that. Anyway.
Yeah.
And
No. I mean, you got to have pretty strong legs to pull that off.
I do. Yeah.
Well, that's
and
good.
so I've done like multiple like rucksack marches, and again, being in the infantry is very physically demanding, with the rucksacks like sometimes being like friggin' like my weight or more, and carrying them for like extended periods for patrols and stuff like that. So I had to be fit, and in order to do that, I had to take time out of my own as well and make sure that I was properly like eating properly, working out, and then even after I left, I still do things like I'm a use of force instructor as well, and so you have to be physically fit, you know what I mean, if you want to be respected in my community too. So like,
Sure.
I know this is like sounds awful, but like we kind of judge people like if you're use of force, or if you're like a military guy or infantry, and you're like not healthy, you know what I mean? Like we kind of judge.
Oh no, of course. No, that doesn't sound bad at all. Look, come on, people judge a book by
And I
the
love
cover all the
challenging
time.
myself. So I've done like ultra marathons, I've done adventure races, I've done primitive survival stuff in the woods, naked with a survival item, you know what I mean, for over multiple days, like not just for Discovery Channel, but like for like on my own, like for fun, and yeah, I just do weird things, but it's all like very physically demanding things, but it's because it's fun to me. I don't know, it's weird. And I've done bodybuilding competitions as well, so I'm actually certified to be a coach. Because also being in the infantry as a platoon commander, we were responsible for putting together training plans and fitness plans and stuff like that and implementing them.
Right.
And so I felt like also like I should be knowledgeable on nutrition and working out and anatomy and stuff like that. So I don't know.
Awesome. Seriously, no, all great stuff. Love it. Love it all. Love it all. Okay, so let's get into it. When did you? No, we've already talked about enough general conspiracies. When did? And I've listened to enough of your stuff that you have, you've got a digital virtual take on this as well. So, but we'll back up. What was the first thing that got you into flat Earth? Did you just run into it by accident? Did somebody talk to you about it? Did you just wake up one day and had it in your head? What happened?
I would say that I actually have the I think it's what I don't want to like put other people's names out there, but I actually have a flat Earth map that I bought so Archaics, he has this photo behind, like a picture behind him on some of his videos. Sure. And again, I don't agree with everything he says either, just to be clear. Like I don't want to like slam him at all. He's very smart, but there's some things I just don't agree with. But anyways, it is what it is. But I have the same flat Earth map, and I've had that since 2011. And gotcha. So and for me it was more about like the like I still wasn't connecting the dots, and so I would say probably around 2016, 2017.
That's about right.
Because of the community I was in, like on Signal and Telegram with like, again, with all levels of government, or retired people internationally. Right. I was getting a lot of content. So I have people too that I know that are covert law enforcement, people that were like, again, all levels. Yeah. And so I was getting a lot of information anyways. And so I was sent the Lost History of Advanced Civilizations, or the Lost History of Flat Earth. It's a really long documentary. It's like over 6 hours long. Mm-hmm. And so I was and so that was sent to me by someone that's still in the special forces. Wow. And so this is what I mean, in our community, like people are trying to share information, and it's getting pushed back down, right? And so and that's why, like, anyway, I won't get into Canadian politics or anything like that, but we have people in certain positions that are there just as puppets and muppets, have no idea what they're talking about or doing. They're so like woefully underqualified. Yeah. And they're really making things really, anyway, bad here. But yeah, and so I looked at the at that documentary, or wherever it was, and I don't mean to plug other videos, but it was good enough because there was a point in it where it had said that like even just one fact that was disproven out of all the theories, that just made every other one fall like a house of cards or whatever. And right. I was like, holy shit. And I'm like, I've been questioning this, and I know this is bullshit, I mean, all this stuff, but I'm like, in my head, I was still like not putting 2 and 2 together, that like it means like A plus B equals C, you know what I mean? And then it was like, after watching that, I was like, yeah, it's 100% flat. How can it not be? This is I was going more with the electromagnetism stuff with Tesla and Walter Russell and Ken Wheeler, right. and these people, and correcting some of their stuff as well that I think is incorrect. And then and so I like there's no like it's a fact.
You just jumped on it. So how long did it take you? when you between the first time that you started connecting the dots and the time where you made that statement to yourself. It's like, oh yeah, it's flat. Couple weeks, couple
Luckily,
months.
I had already done some like I'd already gone down some rabbit holes.
Yeah.
And so like the moon landings, I had already known by that point that those were faked, like for a couple of years. And that's what I mean. Like I was so ignorant. Like how did I not connect? You know what I mean? Like a whole bunch of different things. And so
By the way, thank you, by the way, for saying that out loud. You're one, without me asking, you're one of the few international people outside this country, which I ask all the time. I say, why do you think the Americans went to the moon? Why do you believe that? And you're like,
absolutely not.
thank you.
No, absolutely not. And Stanley Kubrick even admitted in multiple videos that it didn't happen, right? So like even with the kid with the Apollo friggin' 11 like rocket or whatever going in the room, and then he comes out disheveled, and then room 237, and there's 237,000 miles between apparently like Earth and the moon, which is not true. It's
Did you watch the documentary? Did you watch it? The moon room 237?
I haven't watched. I just know
my God, you gotta watch it. You gotta watch.
I'm sure it's full of
there was a guy. Basically, what happened, just you picked up fragments of it, but how that happened was, for those of you who don't know who are listening, Stanley Kubrick, who was accused of doing all the film research for the Apollo program, which he did from 63 to 68, which was he turned into a movie, 2001: A Space Odyssey. But he regretted it so much because, it sounds great to a director, the government writes you a blank check. It's like, oh yeah, we'll give you ungodly amounts of money, but we need your help you fake this. And you can't tell anybody that by the time he was done, he built in his confession into the Stephen King book, which was turned into a movie called The Shining. Now, the part you were mentioning, which I love, thank you, by the way, for bringing that up, which was when that kid stood up and he was wearing that Apollo handmade sweater, was so telling because it made no sense. It was absolutely glaring because, first off, the movie was done in 1980, right? Which was 12 years after that freaking mission. Yeah. The kid was only like 5, 6 years old, maybe 7. And it's like, wait, when exactly did his mother knit that? Because, the kid, she would have knit it, way after the program had been done. So what, and again, the average person.
And then the two girls at the end of the hallway, like that represents like the Gemini mission, and they're all like, they look kind of creepy and scary. So like that's also showing you like they're looking at this as well. Like,
yeah. Oh yeah. Or the moon room itself. Again, if you've never watched Room 37, the documentary, which is everything in that room is fake. Everything in that which is, the anagram, the door tag, which was room number was an anagram for moon room. And again, the beautiful woman in the bathtub, if you ever watched the movie, who turns into a ghoulish nightmare, which is like, and I get it. The symbolism is like, oh yeah, it was a beautiful dream to start. It was like the perfect movie. What director wouldn't say yes, right? And and then he backed out at the end. He was like, oh, I'm done. I'm not helping you anymore. You can take what I used, but I'm not going to help you anymore. And that's why the television footage was so terrible, and why the still photos. Stanley Kubrick was such a perfectionist. He would have never let the still photos be as perfect as they were. Anyway. So
and even with the Apollo,
honestly, that's really great that you thought the Americans were. Sorry.
Oh, and now, I mean, it's ridiculous the footage that's coming out of India and China. Sorry, in Japan with like their fake moon stuff. I'm just like, oh my God.
Hang on, we're buffering for a second. Hang on.
Oh, are we good?
We are buffering still, and now we're frozen. Hopefully we don't lose anything. If we have to stitch it together, we will, but we're still recording. All right. Wait. Hang on. It's just catching up now.
Okay.
Oof. Wow, there was like 15, 20 seconds there where we were buffering like nobody's business. And we still might be. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna stop this one, and then we're gonna pick it up where we left off, okay? So hang tough. We're gonna stop recording.
Oh, I can still hear you.
Wait, now you're back. Hang on, let me kill the chat. Can you see me?
Yes, I can see you and I can hear you.
Okay, we were buffering for like at least 30 seconds. I'll have to stitch that together, which is fine.
Oh no. I hope
no, it's okay. I mean, no, we're probably fine. We're okay. But there was a point.
Apollo missions with the moon landings. There's 12 astronauts that have landed allegedly on the moon that have actually landed. There's been moon missions, all these other missions, but from the last I checked, there are 12 astronauts that have landed on the moon, and so that's all like allegedly, right? So like I don't believe in that, but what I'm saying is with that, that's also owed to like a connection with like the symbology that with the zodiac signs. There's 12 zodiac signs, and then you got the sun's ecliptical path through the zodiac sign. So I believe that the Apollo mission, like that is the representation of the sun, and then 12 astronauts or actonauts, whatever you want to call it, being represented that way. So I don't know, you know, and that's why I was going to say when I was at RMC, I actually was part of an obstacle course team. I was like, you have like, there's 9 men that are selected and 1 woman, and then backups. And so you have to be incredibly fit to be selected to even do this obstacle course training stuff. But part of that team was, and I won't say his name, but was he's actually an astronaut, like out of Canada, and someone that I've actually I was in RMC with, I was on this team with, and so and so we were always training together for a couple of years, and traveling together and competing, and very fit, very smart. But like, I mean, if you're an astronaut, like I'm hoping that he doesn't sell us out.
Well, you know, it's tough. And by the way, when we stop recording, can you tell me his name or not?
I maybe over not even email. Yeah, I will off the record.
All right.
Sure.
Tell me name. Yep. It's tough with Canadian. Oh, who's the most famous one? Hatfield, Chris Hatfield, I think is your most.
Yes.
Yeah, that guy, the guitar playing guy. I mean, with astronauts, it's kind of tough. I'll share you a quick story. You know, I was doing an interview, a UK thing, and they blindsided me and brought on one of our astronauts in the studio next to the presenter, and I was coming in through video conference. And they were trying to pick a fight between us. You know, it's like, you know, are you American? Do you hate America? Are you calling this astronaut here a traitor, you know, or a liar? And I go, no, but he's a full bird colonel in the U.S. military. I go, you don't make it to be a full bird unless you know exactly, you know, how to keep your mouth shut.
Fact. That's actually like fun fact, because I do know people that are higher level government, even working like part of like Space Force, by the way. Anyway, right. And he very high ranking, someone that's like ex special forces as well, and like business on the side. Rejoined because of what's going on, but like he's like high level, he has no idea the reality of the world. I tried to share some content with him a few years ago, and he's like you know, basically he's like, you know what, we're you know, I've respected you and admired you and for years, but like I'm out, you know what I mean? Like he hasn't talked to me since, right? He thinks I'm fucking fudging crazy, and it's unfortunate because like I was also someone that was like worked with him on higher level stuff. And you know, as a peer, as a colleague, and I thought I had that credibility, and as soon as I sent that, it doesn't matter. It's like, nope.
Well, okay. Well, to be fair, did he ever go up? Was he an astronaut? No, yeah, and that's just it.
No.
If he's an astronaut or part of aerospace in name only, they don't know. In fact, I don't think this is such a big enough secret, and if you've heard my stuff, you probably heard me say this, that you don't tell them until you have to tell them. It's a need to know deal. And even then, you know, remember, they're not going up anyway. So it's like, okay, you're going to go be faking this and this. Now, as you know, because you know about clearances, it's like, no, you don't have the clearance to know why you're faking it. You're just faking it. No different than a spook that's or special ops person that's sniping somebody. It's like, oh no, this guy's coming out of this hotel at this time of day. Here's your rifle, shoot him. You don't get to ask why you're shooting him. You don't get to ask the political intrigue behind it. That's your job. That's what you do. Go ahead.
And I'm familiar with that as well because like a combat support company, second in command, we like I was responsible for snipers and for reconnaissance teams and signals. And so but the thing is, like, these are heroes, these are warriors, and the thing is, like, they should, like, I would rather it be like me giving them the orders, you know what I mean? Like to go after someone that's an actual bad guy than to have, you know what I mean, them be lied to and go after someone that's an actual innocent person that's probably just like speaking out on what's going on with the government, right? Because fun fact, I've also done training with international communities, and like there's a lot I can't say on here, but where there's specifically the training in the last few years has been about specifically targeting people internationally, like an Interpol type thing, but like military, and going after people. And this has been happening for decades and generations anyways. Like it's not that we're not aware of it, but like more so in first world countries now, like the training is geared towards targeting people that are going against what we're talking about. Like, so me, right? You know what I mean? Like anyone that's
Right.
talking about, you know, like calling out lies or deceit from government and speaking out against all that stuff, it's literally within the narrative
Sure.
to paint us
Sure. I
as
get you.
extremists or like homegrown terrorists or whatever you want to call it, which is not true at all.
Yeah.
And so it is what
Right.
it is.
Interesting. You first, like you were saying earlier, and I know you can't give names, you had special forces friends that are either out or still in
Yep.
that were fully into flat Earth and told you just like, oh yeah, here's why.
One.
What?
And I don't,
One.
and there's a couple people, like I only literally know like less than 5 people in all of Canada.
Yeah.
And again, I'm very connected. Like I've been to the Yukon and back. I've been to PE. I've been East and West Coast, like
Yeah.
all over the Canada, like all over the world, basically. But and so connected in certain networks. And there's like less than 5 people, and I don't know anyone in Canada. So like maybe you would know more than me because of these conventions. I don't know anyone in Canada that is speaking out like I am on flat Earth or any of the other.
No, you're right. Very few can. I mean, yeah, you're right. It's so funny you mentioned that. There were a bunch of people from Canada that came to the conference, for example. Almost none had their own channels. And women, you're the only woman in Canada, I think, that I know
I don't know anyone else. I've looked. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, putting
New
yourself
channels
out.
now.
Let's talk a couple logistics things really quick because you knew snipers and still probably do know snipers.
I was married to
Did
one.
you ever deal with a sniper? Because I shoot. That dealt with anything but windage and elevation. Do you ever?
Yep.
That's basically it.
Yep.
Windage and
Oh,
elevation.
and pressure and atmospheric pressure, things like that. Like things,
Of course,
there's
crap like
minor
that.
things like that. You know what I mean? But there's no Coriolis effect. There's none of that.
Yeah. I can't remember the last time I took a shot where it's all of a sudden I pause, like, oh crap, I got to look up on the map where I am and see how fast the Earth is spinning where I am. In fact, there was one of our guys, a master gunner, who was a good friend of mine. He for a career tank, and he stopped me dead in my tracks. He goes, "Do you know how tough it would be to shoot anything if we had to take into account the curvature, especially the Coriolis effect, especially the Coriolis
Oh my
effect?"
God, it makes
He-
no sense. And I was mechanized infantry, so I was with so I was in a mechanized battalion, and so it was light armored vehicles, and so like I was firing basically cannons out of the light armored vehicles, like and so and in the infantry, because being an officer, you have to fire every weapon system that you're going to be employing, and you have to be aware and familiar of like the max effective range, where you can employ it, all that stuff.
Right.
Never discuss Coriolis effect. And again, I was combat support company second in command. I literally was the coordinator, whatever you want to call it. There were snipers in my company and reconnaissance, and these are advanced, level people, like within the Green Army was what we call it. Like these were like the best of the best.
Yeah.
And I also was married to a sniper. And fun fact, I was a better shot than my ex. Anyway. And but I've also competed internationally, so it's not fair to signal that out.
Yeah, it's okay. That's all right.
It's not slamming him. He's a good shot too. And yeah, like never factored in Coriolis effect.
Yeah.
And I fire a lot as well. I'm a firearms instructor. And I'm not out there with like 1,690,000, you know what I mean? No. Anyway.
Yeah, it drives me nuts every time I see, over here, somebody will run a news report. It's like, oh, a sniper took a really, long shot. He had taken into effect the curvature and the Coriolis effect, and I'm like throwing stuff at the screen. It's like you're just lying because you're confirming basically what all our other military people have said. Everyone from howitzers to tanks to missiles to even submarine guys. It's like, look, submarines are basically planes that are underwater. Right. And we don't, and everyone said, oh yeah, we've heard about the Coriolis effect. I've seen even, they've said, oh, I've even seen charts that talk about it. We never use it. It's never put into a firing solution ever. And it's like, yeah, I totally get that.
And even being outside, like you can feel like the slightest of winds and you're telling me that, at the equator, it's like 1,690 kilometers per hour. Like and zero at the top, like it makes no sense to me. And even with that, when you think about it, and with the clouds, and even with cannons, like when they fire up, they go almost directly back into like the cannon holes. Like there's no, but even with hummingbirds and with bees, like they're not impacted by, even with this gravitational force they're talking about as well. Like these are things that once you go further down the rabbit hole.
Let's go into it then. So what are your, if I'm brand new to the flat Earth thing, right, and we're sitting over coffee, and we know each other pretty well, You're throwing this at me. What's your lead stuff you're throwing at people when it
Oof,
comes to flat Earth?
that's a, I
Assuming
know what I've never been asked that before because people don't like talking about this at all in my family either. Like it gets shut down before I even go. It's funny, but
well, I mean, do you segue? Do you try to like lean into it? It's like, so what do you think about the American space program or crap
with
like
my
that?
family, it doesn't get brought up because
Oh,
and it's out of respect because because I'm in a different province. So whenever I go to see my family now, it's usually during like family gatherings,
sure.
and so like there's academics in my family and there's people that are very vocal and opinionated, right? And so like there's also the real risk of like an argument and then like ruining Christmas dinner or Thanksgiving, and is it worth it? And because like people within my family are very adamant that they believe that the Earth is a globe, and
Right.
I've shared links to certain people
Yeah.
even years ago, and they don't even want to look at it. It's shut out. They've called me a pseudoscientist of
Yeah.
all friggin' things in my like. I'm like, anyway, you can call me so many names, but like a pseudoscientist, like you know,
Yeah.
now that's gonna be all over the internet. Like people are gonna be like, "That's a pseudoscientist." Anyway,
Okay. Okay. Well, let me change. Let me change
but I
text
would
then.
segue with so many different things. Like, well, I guess I couldn't do that, but I would start with the curvature being debunked, and then I would talk about like, do you know? I would ask questions like, do you know about the Pythagorean model or the logarithms or the algorithms that is used with the Pythagoras theorem? Do you know the
Right.
other models that are used and the calculations that are used? You know, like where it's 8 inches per mile squared, and even like it doesn't matter how long of an algorithm you put in place. Like, I'm sorry, when you break it down, and it's actually giving more credit, like it's giving more leeway to the globe earthers, like the Pythagoras 8 inches per mile squared model
Right.
that's being used when you break it down. And so even after three miles, right, like with the 6 feet, you know, and then going beyond that, it's just like, I mean, you can prove that yourself on any given day, right? So like I would start with something like that, you know, and I would say like walk your butt, you know what I mean, to like a lake or something like that. Like, I mean, or a place where you have that distance, bring out a camera or whatever, and then or vector binos or binos for those sniper guys out there, and make your assessments, right? And so this is what I mean, like even with snipers, like with vector binos and all these like advanced capabilities that we're using for surveillance, like it's so obvious, right? It's beyond you know 10 miles even for people, and even for myself, like being being like as an officer in the infantry, like I was coordinating assets with the tankers, with the engineers, with pilots, with people in the air, like so multiple different elements as well,
Mhm.
who also fire at longer ranges, and and there's no curvature for that as well. And so I
Yeah.
would start with that and say that you can prove these things yourself, because then the onus is on them. And then just about the I would say with the sun, people always ask me about the sun, like how can you debunk that, right? About this like allegedly being 93 million miles away. And I just ask questions because a lot of people, not a lot of people, like only a few people have talked to me about this or are open to it, but they don't know like their model like, at all, like at
Right.
all.
Right.
And so, you know, like they're calling me an idiot or all of these things, but I'm like, okay, well, how far is the sun away from the earth? And how is it that if it's 93 million miles away and like we're rotating and spinning around and revolving, then how is it that look with crepuscular rays, how are we seeing the rays from above, right? And closer, and with anyways, I can go on all these tangents, but
Do it. Keep
even with the
going.
sun's elliptical path, like it's it travels through like the Tropic of Cancer, and then the equator, and then the Tropic of Cancer, Capricorn, right?
Mhm.
So like even with that, like I've looked at astronomical mathematical books, astrology books, astronomy books, and then the mathematical equations that are being used, right? And
Mhm.
and so it even says in these books, and then it just like goes off and like and it explains away other things, but like that the sun travels through the zodiac signs 15 degrees every hour
Mhm.
through the zodiac sign. So every zodiac sign that it passes through, it's every 2 hours, and so this is a divine clock that we're seeing. And so how would that be possible? You know what I mean? If we're spinning around, you know, like we're spinning and rotating and then revolving around the sun and traveling at ridiculous miles, you know, through the galaxies, it just it's an impossibility just because of how accurately we can predict the seasons and the sun's ecliptical path. And
Right.
so you've probably talked about this before as well, but on the March 20th in the northern hemisphere or the 21st in the southern hemisphere, we have the spring equinox where we have the equal amount of day and night,
Mhm.
and then it starts its ascent from equilibrium depending on if you go to the northern or southern hemispheres on the 20th or 21st of June. And that's why also in books they talk about St. John the Baptist Day being on the 24th of June, because that's when the sun essentially starts its descent from like the highest point in the sky. And so it follows and this is probably boring for a lot of people because I'm talking about math and sine waves and stuff like that, but it follows like a sinusoidal cycloid ecliptical path in the sky above us. And then so it starts its descent. And then on around the 23rd of September, we have the fall or the autumn equinox, where we have equal amount of day and nights. And sorry, I'll back up. On the 20th or the 21st of June, that's when we have the longest periods of daylight and the shortest amount of night, as you know. And when the sun is in Capricorn, in Cancer, when the sun is in Cancer. And what else can I say about that? And it's the Cancer is ruled by the moon. Anyways, that's one other thing as well. And just before I move on, no, I think that's good. And then on the 23rd of September, we have the equinox again, and then on the winter solstice, that is the 21st of December in the northern hemisphere and the 22nd of December in the southern hemisphere. And where we have the shortest amount of daylight, the longest amount of night, and where the sun stays on the lowest path for 3 days, and on the 25th of December rises again, and then starts from the lowest point in the sky. You know what I mean? The shortest amount of day, it starts its ascent again from the lowest point, and then going back, into the sign of, and going back to the spring equinox. Sure. And so there's Mithras and Dionysus and Jesus and Horus and the Phoenix, so many different representations of the sun on its path within the sky, within the firmament.
Right.
And then also, like, I know I'm talking so much, but on or around the July 8th of every single year, we have, like, you see like anywhere between 98 and 99% sunlight. And that's based on where it is above us. And so how would that even be possible? How would anything above like 90%, like how would that even be possible of people seeing daylight? And again, this is also something that's like accurate every single friggin' year. Sorry for swearing. And so like that would be an impossibility if the sun was 93 million miles away, or anything. And then people talk about, well, how do we see like the moon, like upside down in the southern hemisphere and stuff like that? I'm like, well, picture being at a table, whether it be a square table or a circular table, and there's a light above, and like, let's say there's a 6, you know what I mean? Like up, like right beside the light, you know what I mean? If like someone like at one end of the table, they might see a 9. The person at the other end of the table, they'll see a 6. And then someone on the other end, they'll see sideways 6s or 9s. You know what I mean? It's just based on the perspective, based on like where you're at and where you're seeing it, right? And so also impossible if the moon, if the sun was 93 million miles away, like on its path, and so I would probably start with those, and then go from there, because there's just so much, like, because talk about flat.
I can tell. It's
like why are there and then I would ask the questions too about like why, like even with so many different government documents that are archived now, it's so hard to get access to. Why are all these like complicated algorithms and mathematical equations being based on a flat non-rotating Earth?
Right.
Like all of them, like a flat non-rotating Earth. And I have gone through myself personally and gone through and access these archived documents, and they don't want you to see it at all, right? They will like oh, sorry, my dogs are being a little loud in the background.
That's right. What's your dog's name?
I've got Ranger's the husky, and then Smokey, he's a mix.
Ranger and Smokey. Who's making the noise?
Ranger. I'll get him out.
Oh, that's okay. That's cute.
I love them.
At one point, I only saw the ears. It was like, okay. No, that's cute. But by the way, to your point, something you mentioned earlier, I think a lot of military people, just like a lot of anybody, they just don't know, because they couldn't see the forest for the trees. Little quick story. In America, we've got a retired SR-71 pilot, Blackbird, who was traveling around the United States, on a regular basis, does a book tour. And part of his thing, he goes on stage. It's like, yeah, I flew the Blackbird. I'm the coolest guy ever. Blah blah blah. And he says, yeah, when I was up in the air in Phoenix, above Phoenix, I could see Los Angeles at 70,000 feet. And it's like, okay. But then when he turned to his right, he said, oh no, I could see where the Rocky Mountains met Canada. And I'm thinking to myself, not at 70,000 feet, you can't. Nah, no, that you shouldn't even be able, you should not see Canada at all. And so I could, even he, because he's just saying this publicly, he didn't know. He's seeing it, it didn't occur to him. It's like, oh wow, that is too far. Whatever.
Yep.
So, but so you're a big, so you believe in the dome. I dig that. There was something you
Well,
also
I believe that this is an electromagnetic reality being
there you
projected
go.
via hyperboloids and toroidal fields on a flat plane of inertia, and I
Yep.
feel like or I believe that these fields is what's keeping us in. Like we just can't like go beyond that. Just like a video game, it's a bad analogy, but like I don't think that the way out of this video game or this cosmos or universe is that way. Like I don't think it's physically possible or mentally possible.
Yeah, no, nobody's getting out of here. Not the way it's built. And by the way, don't feel bad. I mean, if you know anything about me, I come from the video game world. I was a
Oh,
video
you're
game.
right.
Oh yeah, not only did I play professionally, but I was a video game producer back in the 90s. So
Huge
I I
industry.
oh yeah, big industry. And of course, everyone was striving to do the same thing, which was eventually create some sort of virtual reality. And of course, you're never going to get that close to it. But we all built when we were building things, we started noticing that the world around us mimicked what we were building, and it shouldn't be that way. Kind of like if you've ever played any games, it's like the double slit experiment. When you look at something off in the distance in a video game, you know that there's nothing behind it because you would never draw anything behind it because your character is never going there. The problem is, why is that happening here? Why, when basically the double slit experiment says that what you're not looking at, you're looking at me right now, but what's in the next room isn't being rendered because you're not
Right.
there watching it. And it's like that just screams virtual. It screams electrostatic, which is like, and which makes me smile. And you probably know the stories when the Americans and the Soviet Union tried to, fire, atomic weapons at the walls, trying to see if they could get out. It's
Oh,
like, yeah, you're not doing anything. It's not going to work because you're
yeah.
using
Operation
tools.
Fishbowl too. They were yeah. There's like so many different and they're
Yes.
still doing tests and yeah, another rabbit hole. But nukes, interesting rabbit hole as well. Nuclear
Yeah,
physical.
yeah. I first, okay, yeah. The nuke thing. I My take on it is at the very least, and I'll tell you, and I don't mind if people listen because our community is so huge that we've got factions and all sorts of different things. As you know, there's not everybody gets
No,
along, but that's fine. But for me, do I believe in fission weaponry? Yes, because it sounds like something that men would come up with. Because the solution, which is breaking the molecules via explosion implosion, seems like something we'd come up with. Just crush it. Just crush the molecules and release the energy. It's like, oh yeah, that sounds ham-fisted enough. But there was a water shot. If you ever get the chance, watch a documentary that was done years ago, narrated by William Shatner of all people, called
he's Canadian.
Yes, yes, he is very good. By the
And
way,
he also went to, and he lied anyway because like I mean he's 93 years old when he apparently went into like the
oh yeah, that zero G
come
flight.
on.
No doctor would ever let that happen. No
No,
way.
and he was 93. Like this is what I mean, like the G-force alone. And so like I've been in all like aircrafts as well. Like, I've been in Chinooks, I've been in helicopters, like you name it.
Yeah.
And then I've also been in Cessnas and stuff like that. Like you can feel the G-force. And I know people that are pilots and now a friggin' astronaut, you know what I mean, personally, and like incredibly fit, like elite level fitness. I'm talking like crazy fitness, and like you feel the G-force even at 3. I don't know if people know like the levels 2, 3, 5, but like you're tripling your body weight even after 2, 3 G-force, and so hundreds of pounds even at that, and they're claiming that they're going like be like experiencing like like you'd have to no, he would be dead.
Yeah.
He would be dead. They would all, and they're like knitting and playing guitar and like smoking and joking like as they're like apparently moving.
Yeah, the ISS, and again, I get it. The ISS is an absolute joke. The Americans. I mean, it's not embarrassing production value, but it's insulting. But I get it. I don't know what the education system is in Canada, but down here, look, the physics club and the math club are really, really small. Everybody else, it's really, really big. All you have to do is fool the masses. You don't have to fool the math club and the physics club. They're going to go along with you because they're going to make up a reason. Like the challenge that I put out years ago. It's like, why does the spacesuit work in a vacuum? How does it work? No one will even no one has emailed me in 9 years to tell me how it works.
And then and also going past like the Van Allen radiation
There you
belt, you know
go.
what I mean? With the
Yep.
spacesuits, like impossibility of that. And then
Yeah.
even with like the suits on the moon, like and then when they're wearing these same spacesuits, by the way, that also have like diving equipment within, like it has like so that they don't drown in space, because like a
Right.
lot of the training stuff they do is in pools. So now within the suits as well, they have like ways of like breathing apparatuses. So because there's been injuries, and I'm going on all these tangents. But
Well, let me throw one you probably hadn't thought of, because I hadn't even thought of it till last night. There was somebody in the after show that mentioned this to me, that they knew somebody that worked on the joints for deep underwater scuba suits, right? Which are mostly metal. You know, they're hard synthetic plastics to resist the pressure, or metals. You know, like the old deep sea,
yeah,
suits with, and stuff like that. And it's
like
like,
SpongeBob SquarePants, that guy, anyway,
the what?
SpongeBob SquarePants, they have
Yes,
like a
like square pants. Yes, but the problem was, it's like, wait a minute, that's what the astronaut suit should be like, because the pressure's just going the other way. It should be really hard suits as well, and they're not. And but again, the general public, it's like, well, real quick, when I ask people from other countries, it's like, why do you believe the Americans? And they all say the same thing. It's like, well, because it was on television. The
I
Americans
know.
would.
Oh my god, I know. I get that all the time. Oh my god.
It's like, and I mean, sincerely, I mean, I like this guy from Ireland who just bugged the hell out of me. It's like, I understand why the Americans believe it. Why do you believe it without even questioning it? And they go, well,
Even the
because,
Challenger, even with the
uh,
Challenger mission, you know what I mean? Like I've literally shown people that alive and well, and they're just like, nope. And I'm like, okay, so you're gonna believe a video that like something that you saw on TV a couple decades ago, several decades ago, but you're not gonna believe what I'm sharing to you as someone that has top secret government clearance, as someone that's over 20 years, and he's like, you know.
right. Did you ever see the video where one of our guys went to one of the astronauts' houses while he was shoveling snow?
Oh,
You
when he was
watch it?
shoveling snow.
Yeah. Yeah, he
No.
was shoveling snow in his driveway, and we asked him, and it was weird because he brought it. Oh my God, he gave it away, where he was like, it's like, oh yeah, I've heard that a few times over the years, that apparently my whole life I've looked like this guy. It's like, really, your whole life you looked like this random astronaut with this random face? You just look like
Yeah.
this guy? But the part that got me was, and it was a total giveaway, and you know this if you watch Cops, or if you've ever interrogated somebody. What he never did was he never gave an alibi, which is, that's the first thing you do if you're being accused of something. It's like, hey, were you on the space shuttle that blew up, right? First thing you're going to say, it's like, no, in 1986 I was in Kentucky doing blah blah. Never said anything. It's like,
Nope.
one would think you would offer that up. It's like, what were you doing in 1986? Nope.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
they try to lie
Anyway,
to you and saying like, oh, they're twins. And then you look at the records, you look at the school records, you look at all these accounts, even birth records. There's no twins. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And so they tried that excuse. And then after that, they started hiring people that were twins to try to cover it up. There's so many
Right.
things they're doing now. And even Buzz Aldrin admitted drunk to a child, that I've even shared that video.
I saw
That they
that.
did.
Yeah, I saw that. I watched when you did that. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Buzz, come on, how long can he hold on to the secret? Plus, dementia is going to set in eventually. I'm a
Yeah,
little surprised they haven't just kind of escorted him off somewhere, because
I know.
it's like he's one step away from blowing the whole thing, to be quite honest. Because all it's going to take, I will say this, they have, and you know full well from your line of work, which is, for when it comes to astronauts, first off, they're military. Second, you psychologically profile. Third, you monitor their email, their phone calls, and if they
Yeah.
even hint at any way going off in a different direction, you correct that as fast as you can. In fact,
Right.
you can even throw in the Gus Grissom thing if you want, as like a dark little thing. It's like, oh yeah, remember Gus Grissom, the guy that hung the
Yeah.
lemon on one of our
Murdered.
spacecrafts? Yeah, remember he was supposed to be the first guy. He was the guy that was supposed to be on the moon.
He was the one
And
that was speaking out on these things, even before he even left. He was questioning.
yeah,
Like,
he knew.
oh
Yeah, he knew, which is why I was glad that, like, Chuck Yeager, our finest pilot, he wasn't part of the program. But Gus Grissom, yeah, he looked at the engineer. He's like, yeah, it ain't gonna work.
yeah.
I don't know what you think you're gonna do with that, but it's not gonna work. And it's like, yeah, what happened to Gus? Oh,
And
he's
then
not.
even with like the lack of oxygen, you know what I mean? Like making it such a highly flammable area that were even like a little bit of static from hair could have set off, like in
Oh,
other instances too, explosions or fires, like literally criminals.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I want to, if I ever get a chance to ask an astronaut, because I'd love to see what their question is, even if they're listening to this, which is because I want to ask them like about the ISS, for example. It's like, so what's your, if you ever know any scuba divers, and I'm sure you have, which is, what's your nitrogen oxygen ratio up there? Just wanted to ask because I wanted to slip up and say, oh, like 70% oxygen. Like, oh, really? Because that's toxic. So you want to change that answer because scuba divers only do 70-30 nitrogen and oxygen, which begs the question, how'd you get all the freaking nitrogen up to the space station?
so I will, and so my astronaut friend, I actually a few years ago was reaching
Yeah.
out to him on social media, like, and even on LinkedIn of all places too, just trying to like reach out to him about this stuff, and wasn't getting anywhere. But he was gone for a while, and then
Yeah.
came back on social media, and then it was announced that he was part of like these missions and stuff like that. But then guess what? Like, so I messaged back, and now his accounts, all of his accounts for a while now, they're taken over by the Canadian Space Agency. So that's what happens. They actually have people that are actually they take over their accounts, and they
Yeah.
let you know too. They're like, hey, you know what I mean? If you want to reach me, this is not the way. And then so there's no way of communicating with these people because all of their social media platforms are taken over by government,
Yeah.
and by
Yeah.
certain people. And for us, it's the Canadian Space Agency. For you guys, would be the American Space Agency,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they're the ones that are.
Go ahead. Go ahead. You're
Oh,
good.
so there's no point in me saying like, hey, like the earth is flat. Like, take a look at this video, take a look at this, because it's gonna go nowhere, right?
Right. Yeah. And again, of course, you would have handlers. And
Yeah.
again, what I was trying to get at earlier was no one in aerospace has crossed the line. No, I mean, yes, military people, sure. I've gotten all sorts of military people, pilots, air traffic controllers, snipers, artillery, all those guys. But aerospace, you have to lock it down as best you can. And to this day, no one. I mean, I'd say that wasn't going to happen anyway because there's less than, I think there's only like five, well, let's say 600 people that even have claimed to have been in orbit or further, and that's in the world
Yeah.
total, and almost and 95% of them are military from whatever branch, or whatever country. But
And then
anyway,
even with this, with the landing, with the rocks that they brought back, like those have been confirmed repeatedly to be petrified trees,
yeah,
and or whatever you want to call it, and like and from Earth. And the filming too was done, like some of the filming done underwater. But I was going to say that Chris Hadfield, some of these people that are astronauts, they're actually people that are like that are scuba divers as well. Like these
sure,
people are divers, like, and they have to be because like a lot of the stuff they're doing as well, it's literally underwater, and
yeah.
so that's where they have that experience. And
Yeah, and well, again, you and I we're preaching to the choirs, but that's fine. Let's keep doing that for a little bit. Which is no one thinks it's suspicious that the training center for the ISS is in that deep pool at all. It's like, wait, that's the absolute opposite you would want to do. The pressure is coming in from the outside. Why would you train in a water environment? It's like, oh, because it's got
space
that
is the
floaty
ocean.
feel. It's like, so what? You test in a, with a harness and because by the way, it also gives resistance. There's no resistance in space. Like with water, it's tough to move in water because you have to push against the medium, which is the water. In space, in fact, you're pushing into nothing. Or oh, sorry, one more quick thing. Again, little things that people miss, which I'm sure you caught, which is when they were doing the space stuff, like jumping around the moon. Why are they jumping in slow motion? I go, you weigh
Oh,
180
yeah.
180-pound man weighs 30 pounds. Therefore, you're superhuman. You should be moving super fast. And I mean, vertical leap would be amazing. I mean, if you had to all of a sudden, if you weighed a sixth of what you weighed now, think of what
Yeah.
you could do. It's like
Oh my
no
God.
feats of strength. It'd be awesome. Nope. We're not going to do any of that. Whatever.
Yeah, they were being connected with ropes and stuff like that. You could see some of like the harness, like stuff from like some videos that multiple people have shown. But even with the visors, you
Sure.
see like people like filming like within the visors, and like even the
Right.
lighting, like multiple different angles of lighting, the stars not being there, like different rocks having numbers on them or letters, you know what I mean? Because they're stage props.
There you go.
Like there's and even that like there's so much to it, like even
Yeah.
like
Or
the earth photos, clearly CGI. Even the Blue Marble guy even admitted it as
uh,
well with the stitching and stuff like that. So
we,
people are admitting this,
yeah.
and people are still like, even when I share them admitting it and share the actual government data, the mathematical equations, all of this stuff. And even with Chat GPT, I'm going on all these tangents, but even with Chat GPT, this AI system, I have literally even online just recently, like I've proven this system incorrect multiple times. right? Where and if you don't know the equations, if you don't know the mathematical equations or the results in advance, then you would believe it, right? But like even like it's painful, but like breaking down like Pythagorean model, asking it to like calculate Earth curvature, and you have to be so specific, and then know your content and know the results first, and then finally it reaches the like your conclusion.
Oh yeah, no, Chat. Yeah, no, I did rants on Chat GPT as soon as it came out. I'm a huge sci-fi guy, and it's like, look, it is not what you. I mean, I know the media wants to make it look like, oh, it's going to be Terminator and all the sci-fi movies. Like, no, no, Chat GPT is limited. Oh,
Oh my
now
God.
can it write a paper for you? You bet it can. You know, it's the worst thing for the education system. In fact, there was a friend of a friend who was a freshman at a university down here, and she tried to use Chat GPT like at the first semester, and the professor called her on it. And he's like, "Yeah, not buying it. You're out." And they threw her out of school for it to made her turned her into an example. And but to look, I'm one of those guys. It's like, look, I will find the exploit. It's like all she had to do was ask Chat GPT. It's like, okay, write this paper. I am 18 years old. Include 5% grammatical errors and 1% spelling errors. You know, smudge it up, dirty it up a little bit, and the professor will never figure it out because they'll see the first error and it's like, oh, okay, I'll, red marker it, and then you'll be fine. But nope, she had to go for perfection because she was lazy. So yeah, ChatGPT, no, not. It's self-aware. Okay, real quick, and if tell me if you disagree with this, which is because people have said, oh, AI is eventually in ChatGPT, it's gonna become self-aware and take over the world, and I go, no. The reason is because look, I come from a programming background. We can't even come up with the flow chart of how that would work because we'd have to define ourselves. You're basically looking in the mirror. It's like, okay, what makes me me? Okay, first you have to answer that question, which is
Light in motion.
Yeah, that's tough. And then, okay, code that. Write that try to code that. It's like, don't even knows where to start. So whenever Elon Musk and the guy just drives me nuts. Elon Musk, starts throwing that. It's like, oh no, Terminators are going to take over the world. It's like, dude, what?
Oh, sorry, just because you're talking about Elon Musk. Fun fact, I'm not sure if you're aware of this. Is you probably know this, but like what we're calling like satellites as well. It's not just these balloons in the sky or things like that. And then these I forget what they call them, but these electromagnetic that are also simulating the satellite, but like that show like anyway. But the reason why he called that no-fly zone in Ukraine was because there was a no-fly zone in Ukraine in that area. You probably know the story, and so because of the no-fly zone, like Starlink and any other companies that are using aircrafts to do that connection, that GPS connection for connectivity, he had no excuse for the reason why like Starlink wouldn't be available in that area for a no-fly zone. So he made himself look like a hero, you know what I mean? But like, no, it's because like you weren't able to fly your friggin' planes and connect Starlink, you know what I mean? Like overhead, like that's the only reason. So don't make it seem like you were a hero for that when in fact it had to do with the fact that you have your satellite connections or whatever you want to call it on all aircrafts do that and bounce signals off each other. And
you've been listening to David Weiss's stuff a little bit, haven't you?
Oh yeah, he's well versed in this stuff as well.
No, it's good. No, David's a friend of mine. He's a great guy. I know his routine so well now that it's like, because I listen to his interviews whenever I get a chance to have something in the background.
Oh, and the Flat Earth map app. Sorry, I promote that. Like that's his.
Oh yeah.
Like,
you have the Flat Earth Sun, Moon, and Zodiac clock app?
Absolutely. For years I've had that. I shared, that's the first thing I actually share with people. So when you're questioning about the flat Earth, like what do I start with? I actually legitimately, and I'm not plugging this at all, I promise you, but literally say
plug it. I got it on the screen right here.
I literally share it. And then honestly, like it helps so much.
Oh yeah, no, it was a great app. I was really embarrassed that you got it on your screen. Sweet, she's got the Flat Earth Sun, Moon, and Zodiac clock app. I was embarrassed that I didn't have it for like the first year it was out because like I'll get to it, and then finally it did evolve over time, and now it's really, really slick. But yeah, you're right with the plane stuff. I want to include a quick story on that. Yeah, you're absolutely right. The point you were getting at was adding airplanes as roving cell towers is genius because no one knows, right? Even the pilots don't freaking know. Yeah, that they're actually basically they're turning each airplane into over a certain size into a hotspot. It's like, wow,
Yeah.
that's actually pretty damn clever.
Yeah.
Unless there is a no-fly zone in the world that no one can fly over,
Mhm.
in which case that screws up that zone, and then you have to make up stories for that. The other part, which you may or David's probably said it, but I know I've said it on certain things, which is the planes which go off, off GPS when they drop off of GPS. I remember the first time I told people, yeah, it happens in the southern hemisphere, and almost immediately I had pilots calling me from the northern hemisphere saying, "Oh, no, no, dude, it happens here too." He goes, you leave. He goes, any plane that goes from our west coast until like Hawaii. There's no islands between here and Hawaii, for example.
Yeah.
He goes, when you leave San Francisco or Los Angeles, wherever it is, when you get out 200 miles offshore, oh no, you're blinked out. Your latitude and longitude is gone. And it's like your heading's good. It's like you'll get there, but they don't know where your plane is. And I've even had guys inside the United States tell me that. It's like, no, there are zones where if there's no towers, your plane is drops off. I mean, yeah, you'll see the icon on the screen, but if you go to latitude and longitude, it's like, nope, nope,
Yeah. And because
estimated.
they don't want you to see the errors and inconsistencies in like what we're using for these models, or sorry, for the navigation, and what we're claiming, and what is actually reality, right? And so,
Right.
like, as you know, and even like GPS, people like keep on saying like it stands for satellite. Like, no, it doesn't. It's system. And ground towers also are what is being utilized to connect us. You know,
Oh,
and even with
ground towers work very, very well because, as you know,
yeah,
we're adding cell towers as fast as humanly possible. It's like, yeah, again, that works for the most part, but there are some places where it can't. And to your GPS thing, you probably already knew this, and that is, it was just the American ground LORAN system that they just slapped another sticker on. It's like, oh no, we got satellites for that now. It's like, yeah, but what'd you do with the LORAN system? Oh, it's still there. It's like, yeah, but you're not using it anymore. We didn't say that. We just say it's GPS now. And
yeah.
again, the blind faith where people say, "Oh, GPS tells me where everything is." It's like that's a U.S. military system. We came up with it. Do you think it's not compromised? Sorry, go ahead.
Oh my God, yeah. No, you're right. I was gonna. Oh yeah, and so well, this is just random, and this is not flat Earth, but it's connected to the internet stuff. And so like, you definitely probably know this, but like anywhere between 95 and 98% of our internet connection is underwater fiber optic cables.
Yes.
And it's been like that for generations, and we haven't updated anything, not the grids, not the friggin' any of that stuff. And
Yeah.
right now in Yemen, there's like kind of like training, things going on in Yemen, and
Yeah.
international events, and so like just off the coast of Yemen, like that's where like underwater in that sea area, like I forget the name, but anyway, that's where the internet connection from east to west literally is. And so
Oh,
if they fudge with that, there could be like internet disruptions between the east and west, and
potentially.
so because I'm not trusting of certain people now based
I'm
on
I every once in a while someone will bring that up to me, and what I tell them is, I go, because everyone says, well, the when the cell phones go down, it goes when they drop the network. I was going, well, yeah, but you got to remember the network right now, that these phones, this is their most important tool that they've had for some time. I go, when that is the end game. When if the phones go down, then worry. But they are not going to drop. The phones will stay up for as long as humanly possible, because you know full well you can't control the narrative unless you have these.
exactly.
And so whatever message, now the last message you put on here before you turn it off, yeah, that's the message you throw out there. By the way, did you ever get a chance to watch or see the trailer for Civil War 2024?
No.
Oh, good Lord.
Oh,
Right. Right.
2024. Damn it. No, and I don't like it.
John,
I'm trying to
John,
avoid a civil war.
well, there was the movie that came out recently, which was I can't remember the title. I hated it so much. The Obama produced
Oh, I didn't watch it
movie.
either.
Yeah, it was. Oh, yeah, don't. It's not worth it. Tons
I
and tons
won't.
of symbolism, but it just drove me nuts. But the trailer that came out a few weeks after that movie came out, which was called, from a British studio of all things, a UK studio called A24. It's called, with Kirsten Dunst, called Civil War 2024. And when you see it, you will. I mean, it rattled some people in our community here, because it is literally America secession, where like Western states are seceding and launching National Guard against the Capitol. It's like, what is happening? It's like,
That's what they're trying to push for, honestly. Like even in Canada, they're trying to push for a civil war.
Yeah.
And yeah.
They are, and I get it. I mean, I mean, anyone like you, I'm sure you've heard the term "Great Reset" thrown around enough times. And as I've mentioned to people, and again, I love America. Don't get me wrong, but America. In fact, I'll bring this up to you real quick. So you'll totally get this. America is the linchpin that that has to be diminished before you even think about our Great Reset, because America screws everything up because we don't go along with anything.
I love America too, by the way. I'm Canadian, but I absolutely, and I've been all over the US as well. I have friends that are American still, even now. I have Canadian friends that actually fled Canada and they're actually living in the US, like even Texas and
Wow.
other areas. Yeah, they left.
Like we've been trying to get people to square off against this for a while because war is profitable and blah blah blah. The Ukraine thing didn't pan out. The Taiwan thing's not working. I mean, come on, we wiped out part of Yemen. Nobody seems to care. Iran's not making a move, and people are saying, well, why isn't Iran? Why aren't they doing that knee jerk reaction and coming after us? And I said, I'll tell you why. I go, because we spent so much money and so many years building up our defense budget that we have stuff, as you know, that nobody else has. I go, the term carrier groups, obviously. Italy has two, France has two, England has two, China and Russia both have two, a total of 10. You know how many we have? We have 11. It's more than everybody else combined. It's like, do you really want to, as weak and as divided and as screwed up as America is, are you really going to take a crack at them knowing that if you screw up, Europe in any way, America, I mean, come on. I use the analogy, we're that horrible drunk bully that's sitting outside of the bar after closing, right? Just lurching, right? And, jaw out, and you got a bunch of guys like, yeah, we can take him. We can take him. And then you stare at him and you realize he is absolutely strapped head to toe with weaponry, guns and knives and grenades. And you're thinking, we'll get one shot at this. And if for whatever reason he doesn't go down, it's over. It's freaking over. So yeah, I'm sorry, I ramble.
No, so do I. Yeah,
But
even with that, like I'm hoping that people don't
that's why.
fall for these.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, even with what's going on, like I really hope that people don't fall for these. And so, like, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Northwoods, but it was people wanted to have um, military involvement and other government agencies involvement where they would actually be like part of the cannon fodder too, but on American soil. And this was approved from like high level generals and high levels of government to again attack their own, even using like ships and stuff like that, and blame it on the Russians and Cuba in order to blame the communists. Again, this seems to be a trend, and to get us involved into a war. I mean, I say us because Canada has always been involved in like every single war, sometimes before the Americans, and so
Oh yeah,
we allies.
We include you. Any English-speaking country. Oh yeah. Well, as you know, I mean, I'm sure you've been there in international groups with the Australians, and the SAS and stuff like that. Have you ever had a chance? I got to ask you because I've always been a fan of how cagey Russia is. Have you ever had a chance to mix around with Russian guys every once in a while?
I know people that are from Russia. I haven't. One place I haven't been in Russia, I would love to, because especially with the history that's there and stuff like that. But I feel like because of my my background, I don't want to be like another Michael that in China where they're political prisoners. I don't want that. And because of my background, I still have top secret government clearance here. I could be seen as a spy possibly.
Sure.
And so
yeah, you know what? That's a smart move, because any excuse to discredit you, I'm sure that they would use it. Yeah. Again, the Russians haven't fallen for it. The Ukraine thing, the proxy war, as you know, the Russia didn't go for it. They didn't escalate. And I don't think they're going to blow up Finland. I mean, they know the game. They know it as well as anybody. They've been doing this. They're older than us. They're looking at us going, yeah, we know what the Americans are trying to do. We're just trying to figure out if it's worth it at this point. Go ahead.
Like in the NATO community, I've emailed for years, like all levels of cabinet, people that are involved with NATO, the UN, because like that was my network and still is. But again, like I'm just being segregated or outcast because they don't believe me, or they don't understand what I'm saying is actual reality. They don't want to believe it. And so, but even with what's going on with Ukraine and Russia, with that rabbit hole, I was saying right from the beginning that there was some false flags, like this was, and NATO like involvement in multiple countries in Europe. This was escalating tensions, right? And this was like causing there to be like a pot, like anyways, it was sowing the seeds of like a possible escalations. And Russia was saying to Ukraine and other areas that, we would see like joining NATO as a sign of like an escalation of force, you know what I mean? And obviously for obvious reasons, right? And if people know their history, they know that Russia has a reason to be a little bit untrusting of Germany, and America,
Sure.
to be fair,
Sure.
And so it was just, and so for months I was saying that this is possibly going to be something that kicks off. And then of course you had like these high levels of government in the US and other areas that visited Zelensky like early on and pushed a friggin' war, right? Because it was after that visit, like that it's like all hands on deck. But Snake Island, I was calling that right from the beginning, publicly, that like that was a lie. And I was even showing them alive and well, and they were trying to claim that Ukrainians were that Russians were raping Ukrainian women, and that was all retracted and stuff like that. And I was saying that from the beginning, and anything that I was receiving that was coming out of that, by the way. And I've also coordinated medical evacuations from Ukraine and stuff like that, and people that were there involved in other aspects. And so even though I couldn't go because I wasn't vaccinated, I still supported it as best I could because of my experiences and stuff like that. But I was sharing this information to people saying like, what are you doing?
Right.
What are we doing? Look at the, and I look at the information. And so like, and the spokesperson that was talking about the Ukraine war, like she was fired, like early on as well because of lying and inciting violence and stuff like that. And again, there was crisis actors. This pregnant woman didn't die. She's a crisis actor that I shared as well, as she was like doing more crisis acting in other areas. They don't generally switch it up. And then even with Nord Stream 2, like I was saying that Seymour Hersh he's another analyst, like he's an expert, and saying that Nord Stream 2 was not Russia. This was friggin' NATO. That was true.
How dare you? You know full well Russia blew up their own thing.
Right. and the dam that blew up as well. I'm like how, like, no. And there were so many other things as well with the Polish farmers, like with the Ukrainian air defense. They were trying to blame that on Russia as well. And even people that I know in the military, high-ranking officers, I was getting in arguments on LinkedIn saying that it was Ukraine and the debris was Ukrainian. All the connections, and I was reported, and like I've had multiple accounts deleted on LinkedIn, on YouTube, anyway. But
oh yeah, no, I'm absolutely with you. I mean, yeah, it was the Americans and the big two, the Americans and the SAS.
Yeah.
I call it. I say if anything blows up unusually in either part of the world, it's ninjas. And it's basically which it's either them or us. But the joke that I've thrown at people, I'll throw it at you, is, and you know the answer to this question, that is, if the media doesn't say that it's a war, but things blow up, is it still a war? No, because we haven't declared it. It's not it's funny. If you don't announce it's a war, you can actually blow up all sorts of stuff all day long. You just tell the public that something else happened, like some factory near Moscow, or I know the drones that were flying into Moscow, and crap like that. And
they're claiming that didn't. People are still even now saying that Ukraine has not done anything against, has not retaliated against Russia yet.
Right.
I don't even understand how people can be so misinformed. But I can, because in Canada as well, we have so many censorship bills that have been implemented even in the last year, where we can't even see Canadian news. We're actually blocked from seeing it.
Yeah. Well, again, people defer to authority on multiple levels. It's like I'm not the smartest person in the room. They obviously are. Therefore, whatever they say, I will blindly follow. And it's everything. And by the way, I got to back up just a minute or so, which is like, wait a minute, you didn't get the shot? Shocking. What's wrong? What's wrong with you? Are you anti-Canada? Are you an anti-patriot? What? Everybody knows safe and effective and things that are medically sound, whatever. Yeah. No, I'm by the way, I'm very happy that you stood your ground. We lost.
Cost myself.
I don't know what the numbers were in Canada, and feel free to fill me in with you want. But down here, we because we have red team and we have blue team. Republicans and Democrats. All of blue team took the shot, and 20-30% of red team took the shot because they were older, and there's like, well, the government has never led me astray yet. And it's like, yeah, but I don't know if you want to really rush into this. And they did. And so, yeah, 70% of the population down here has gotten the shot. So,
yeah,
which
wild.
is unfortunately.
Ottawa, where I am, like they were claiming it was like over 90%. And so
Oof.
it was awful. I'm not gonna lie. Like I lost all my
90% of the
contacts
province took it.
of Ottawa area. There was a lot of people. There's a lot of government. And
Wow.
so, but in the province of Ontario, I think it was over 85%. Like the entire province, I think it was like over 85% took the like double vaccinated. It was pushed hard. We had lockdowns, mandates. Like if you weren't vaccinated, you weren't able to work. You weren't able to leave your province. You weren't able to go to restaurants or gyms. Not employed. Like anyway, and they were choosing like what the what was important and not important to for jobs, and which was completely opposite of what should have been in place. And but I was sharing this because I was part of the Mefloquin mass tort. So I was part of a legal class action against the government, not for money at all. That's on the record, but to change policies. So before the pandemic was announced, 3 or 4 years before that, I actually was part of this mass tort because of these anti-malarial medications that were banned from other countries. They actually approved them here, and they were pushing them, and there were so many adverse side effects and deaths and stuff like that that they finally eventually stopped it here, but not after a lot of harm and suffering. And these are friggin' military people of service, you know what I mean? Good people. So like it just bothers me that they anyway. And so
I hear you.
I wanted that to change, you know what I mean? And so I already knew, because of like this alleged SPARS, you know, it was going to be coming 2025, 2027, because in my network, we've been saying this for a while, that there's a possibility of a well-executed pandemic, whatever you want to call it, in the near future. And so fortunately I was aware, you know what I mean, that this is something that was going to be oncoming. Luckily I was, because maybe I would have, you know what I mean, fell for it as well. Like, who knows?
Right.
And because I was getting pushed by a lot of people, like people were tagging my home, like threatening me. I was getting death threats. I was getting all, like, you name it.
Good for you though, for standing your ground. No, seriously. Let me tell you a quick story. You know, because again, you stood strong, and you're saying, well, you know,
and I was vocal. And because I was vocal, I put myself out there, and I was part of the Freedom Convoy. Like I announced that it was probably going to be like January 6th. So I literally in my head, like, I'm like, I could possibly get shot being downtown, but I'd rather call out this possibility of having a stupid riot, you know, planned by leftists, you know what I mean? Not by anyone that's part of the like the convoy itself. And but yeah, and just to speak out and call out things, it's been a mess.
Good. No, seriously, good for you. I have known enough people. I do a segment every week on a podcast called Lucky Unlucky. Just to remind people every time, you know, and it's people basically, if you had a side effect like a stroke or a heart attack, but you lived, you were lucky.
Oh my God, yeah.
Even though, you know, a lot of them didn't look like they were lucky. And then the unlucky ones were the ones, you know, this dropped, like the lady just a couple days ago who was giving a eulogy at her father's funeral, and she went down in the middle of the eulogy. It was like, are you kidding me? And that was it. I mean, she just died right there. And they say, why do you do that every week? I go, because there are still people caving in to this day, where it's like, okay, it's like, why'd you wait so long? You know, like there was a guy from Canada. I love that little clip where he came down to the States for the World Series of Poker, right? And he was sitting, and they were hot mic'd, and he was sitting next to a guy on the table, and they were talking. It's like, how'd you get in? You know, it's like, oh, you know, I got the shot. And it's like, dude, he's like, you actually got the shot to come down here? He goes, dude, it was the World Series of Poker. It's like, but I mean, I've run into people that did it for less. You know,
me too.
They did it because they wanted. Sorry,
and because being vocal about this from the very beginning and warning people off, and I had the even as early as 2021, February of 2021, I had the advert. Oh, sorry.
Hang on, we're buffering.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to splice this as well.